Council on Tuesday, January the 5th at 7 p.m. Please rise for the invocation given by Councilwoman Sarah Lucido. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we ask for your guidance as we go about the business of the people of Eastpointe. We are grateful for the many blessings you have given us. Let us all use the gifts of our talents and treasures to make our community a better place. It is in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Here.
Councilmember Lucido?
Here.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Here.
Councilmember Owens?
Here.
Mayor Pixley?
Here. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as is.
So move. Or wait, closed session stuff.
No, Madam Mayor, I was just going to request that approval with removal of item J and move that to just have that on the next regular meeting.
Okay, and then Mr. Albright.
Madam Mayor, I do not have an update regarding the pending litigation DOJ matter from last Tuesday. I have not received any notices or notifications from the court regarding the pending motion for summary judgment, but I'd be happy to answer any questions in closed session regarding that case if the council chooses to do so.
All right. And Mr. Sabota.
Madam Mayor, I have no further information to discuss for collective bargaining unless council would like to discuss matters previously discussed.
No, this might be our first meeting in 4 years without a closed session.
Hurry up, make the motion.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I'll motion to remove J and new business and both closed session items.
Do we have support? Support. Please call the roll on that one.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. That would lead us to the first hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard? Sir? Please come forward and state your name.
Yes, I will. Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Russell Etheridge. I'm an attorney in St. Clair Shores, and I represent MedStar Ambulance. The purpose of my appearing here today, along with two folks from MedStar who served Eastpointe for the last 6 years, Emily Fleming and Brandon Accurso, is to ask you to consider allowing MedStar's request for proposal to be accepted for review by city management. Unfortunately, this proposal was brought on the 10th at 2:02 p.m. and the cutoff was 2 o'clock. I don't know if all of you have gotten a letter from MedStar's CEO, but he fell on his sword for this. These bids went out on December 20th and 21st. And on the 23rd, he was hospitalized, then placed on bed rest and got back to work on the 7th, prepared the proposal, sent his administrative assistant, who apparently went to the firehouse, then came into the building at, we heard, 1:59, looked around for the right office, and then was kindly directed to the clerk's office, who said, "I'm sorry, it's 2:02. We cannot accept your filing." I would suggest that with your contract ending this Saturday night, MedStar, of course, is going to continue to serve the community as it has for 6 years. And I'd note that over 20,000 runs, they've had an excellent result for the community, no complaints, things have run smoothly. MedStar is a 501c3 owned by both McLaren and Henry Ford. They're a major participant. And we would ask, in light of the fact that we were 2 minutes late on the deadline, that city management consider our response to the request for a proposal, which I brought with me here today. I also did note in looking at the request for a proposal that the last line of it is kind of interesting. It says, "The city of Eastpointe reserves the right to reject any or all bids and to waive any irregularities as deemed fit in the best interest of the city." I would certainly suggest that our filing, in light of the circumstances with the CEO who prepares these being ill and being 2 minutes late, would be the kind of irregularity that wouldn't bias anybody. It would give the citizens and this council the ability to have a third entity to look at for responses for ambulance service, and particularly in light of the 6 years of dedicated service and our commitment to supplying service even beyond your deadline. So I would like to bring that to the council's attention and ask you to consider directing city management to review our request for proposal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Mr. Curley?
Good evening, Harvey Curley. Last time I was here, it was item A. We talked about the pictures for the mayor's pictures and on the wall behind me. Tonight I want to talk about the halfway schoolhouse. To me, it's a perfect link to the past, to our heritage, and I talked about heritage last time. Halfway schoolhouse was built in 1872, and they began using that, and they used it until 1921 for the village of Halfway. And it was purchased by the Kaiser Coke Company, believe that or not, the Kaiser Coke Company that was on 9 Mile and Gratiot, and they set it behind the main office, and that was used for storage for a very long time. And then in 1984, it was moved from the Kaiser Coke Company to where it is right now, and believe this or not, it's within 60 feet, and that was measured within 60 feet where it's set in 1872. That's remarkable. They still have the original floor. Most of the windows are original windows that was there in 1872. A couple stories about the teachers in that day. If a female teacher got married, she got fired. And if you were a teacher and taught for 5 years and were doing a good job and the school board had money, your pay was raised to 25 cents an hour. 25 cents an hour, if you can believe that. And lastly, each day, each teacher, male or female, were responsible for bringing a bucket of coal and a bucket of water. So that's part of our heritage, and I told you before, I love our heritage of our city. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, the schoolhouse needs some tender loving care. It needs a new roof, and it needs painting. And it's a very tall building, so we might be able to get some people to volunteer to paint, but it's really dangerous. You're going to have scaffolds. So we're looking for some professional persons to paint it, and certainly maybe a roofing company to do that. The mayor is part of the committee of the schoolhouse, and I will resist to give you a telephone number because I'm not sure which phone number that she would want to give to contact them. But seriously, let's get some TLC. I don't know of another building that was built in the 1800s that's still here.
30 seconds.
That's okay. I'm going to use my whole 30 seconds. I got 20 left. Anyway, Mayor, if you give that number at the end of the meeting, that would be great. And if anybody, professionals listening out there, listen for the phone number. I don't know if it's too late to put a roof on. I don't know anything about that stuff. They'll find that out. But we need that heritage. We need that thing fixed. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curley. Anyone else wish to be heard? Please, in the back.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jessie Jensen. I'm with Damascus Consulting and Development, and I'm here on behalf of Weed Maps. We actually represent the company that services medical marijuana industry and recreational. If you're not familiar with Weed Maps, it's basically a platform where patients can find doctors and provisioning centers all over the world. And through working with Weed Maps, we've been able to gain optics on other municipalities, other states, and how medical and recreational marijuana has impacted these municipalities. So I'd like to offer our services with Damascus. If you guys have any questions in reference to any policy and creating your ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Creech?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Harvey Creech, resident of Eastpointe. I would like to reiterate what Harvey Curtis said. Last year I was over there, and I got a little phone call, and I helped clean up the school, and it is in bad need of repair. And the mayor was talking last year too. I'm hoping somewhere along the line, if anybody could come forward and give any kind of service whatsoever, because that schoolhouse could use a lot of TLC. And if you can get some, I'll try to put my time in there too, as I said before too, with me, and I've got a few medical problems now. I can't jump up and down anymore with the knee and the rest of the stuff. But I believe I can still come along with some of the best of them. And to reiterate, as I said, I went to the family dinner at Love Life. It was a lot of fun. It really was. I said it was a lot of people, good community. I said it was just great. As I said, more of them should come around, and that's more or less what I could say. I'm hoping more people and more functions and everything comes together, because that's what we do need. And when it comes to animal control and abuse, I would like to help a lady, Karen, the same thing about it. I feel just as hard, and sometimes maybe a little bit harder, on that as far as petting zoos go. I know I got a chance to talk to you, Monique, there, and as I said before too, 4-H or whatever it is, the kids don't get a chance to see the animals and the rest of the stuff, but there is different opportunities. But she brings so much to the table. The same thing about it. If you own animals at all, when your animal wants to be alone, it just goes and is alone. Say you put a rabbit in a cage and poke it, it doesn't work. You wouldn't want to put your dog or a cat in a cage, because that wouldn't work. And when it comes to it, the transportation of these animals, when it's hot, you can't cram them into these confined quarters. There's so many things that are wrong. I'm not going to say petting zoos are 100% wrong, but there should be so many restrictions put on them. The people, if they're going to have them, they would have to come forward and do a whole lot better than what they have. And I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creech.
Karen Morajan, Eastpointe resident. I noticed the petting zoo discussion is not back on tonight's agenda, and it's supposed to be. Y'all made a motion at the December 18th meeting saying that you wanted to table this until the second meeting in January, and here we are. This is the second meeting in January. It is not on the agenda. In regards to these petting zoos, I have informed you more than enough since last August. You have not taken any action whatsoever. Your lack of action is sending a message that you are condoning animal neglect. Restrictions are not the way to go, nor are regulations. We have 3 rescue sanctuaries here in Michigan, where if you work with the schools, that goal can be achieved. The kids can have the educational experience they need and desire with the animals. And there is no neglect. And those animals do not go to slaughter when they transition from being a baby to an adult. And that is exactly what all of these roadside petting zoos do, and the stationary ones that are not rescues. The rescues we have in Michigan, that's Barn Sanctuary, Sasha Farm, and Peace Sanctuary. All 3 of these sanctuaries are within an hour, maybe at most an hour and a half drive from Eastpointe. These animals have been spared slaughter. They have come from some horrific conditions. We need to teach children compassion towards the animals, not put them in a cage, put them in a pen, poke them, transport them all over the place, because you know what? You can sit there and think that animal control is going to be your solution. That does nothing to prevent or reduce the stress these animals endure when they're jammed into these trailers with no air conditioning. They're exposed to exhaust fumes. They're terrified. They're frightened. You do not do this to animals. You don't truck them all over the place because all you're concerned about is Goodfellows and appeasing them and entertaining the children. No, do not exploit animals for profit and gain. And as long as you take no action, as long as you condone this, then you're just as guilty as these petting zoos that are neglecting these animals. They're not reporting to anyone about how many animals died en route, how many were injured, how many were sickened. And don't think that if anyone ever files a lawsuit because they got sick from a petting zoo that you can hide behind government immunity. That does not attach when there are individual suits filed. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? First hearing of the public is closed. Move on to approval of the minutes, and the first one is the joint city council planning commission meeting of January the 3rd. Do we have a motion, please?
Sure, Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the joint city council planning commission meeting minutes from January 3rd, 2019.
Move and support. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
The next one is the regular meeting of January the 8th. Do we have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 8th, 2019.
Support.
Move and support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
And we have two closed session minutes. So the first one is from the purchase or lease of real property on the January 8th. We have a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes for the purchase or lease of real property from January 8th, 2019.
Support.
Move and support it. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
And the last one is the closed session minutes related to the collective bargaining strategy from January the 8th, 2019.
And last but
motion?
not least, I'll motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of collective bargaining strategy from January 8th, 2019.
Support.
Move and support. Any corrections? Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. We have no scheduled hearings. We'll move into unfinished business. We have a few items under that. The first one being the goal setting, introduction part 1. Mr. Sabota?
Madam Mayor, I believe council was going to come back. Each council member was asked by council essentially to come up with two possibilities, and then those could be discussed, and maybe we could flesh out an objective or two that could be reasonably achieved within whatever period of time is so designated. And then once we come up with a list, then we can just have one motion to approve these as the goals and objectives.
Sounds good to me.
Who wants to go first? Mr. Kleinfeld?
So we're just setting our top two right now.
Your
correct?
top two.
All right. I would say developing a plan for public safety facilities. It's tough choosing. And restore economic development.
All right, Mrs. Lucido?
For me, it would be to come up with like a long-term plan on how we're gonna go after our roads and infrastructure. That would be number one, and number two would be a public safety complex.
Ms. Owens?
One of my goals will be how to bring in more revenue in the city of Eastpointe so that we can fund the public safety, and hire more police officers and have more animal control and provide more services to the city of Eastpointe. So that would be revenue, bringing revenue into the city, more ideas for that. And the second will be economic development as well.
So, but you had a lot of public safety things all included in that. Is the revenue is just for public safety?
No, it's for, I also said for city services to provide for the residents of Eastpointe. So we want to have better services, we have to bring in more money. So I would like him to research how we can bring more income and revenue to the city of Eastpointe so we can provide better services for the residents. And also, one of those services is the police department. So when they need tasers, if they want to get a dog or anything like that to help with narcotics, we would have those funding. If we are not able to fundraise it, we would have more funding for more services. So revenue and economic development is my priority.
Okay, Mr. DeMonico.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll go with the public safety complex idea, the first one, but just coming up with a plan doesn't necessarily, as we've spoken, maybe need to all be one building or just any sort of plan where we can move on that. I figured that's a pretty specific idea we can move on and actually needs concrete steps. So that'd be number one. And then number two be pension and OPEB, since which is essentially related to financial survival on the list, because I at least see that as our biggest financial issue in the long term.
All right, so mine was to develop or review or develop a new conceptual plan for the public safety complex, as well as potential site locations. And the conceptual plan would include whether it would entice both police, fire, and court. And the other one is to restore the Office of Economic Development in PR.
Okay. Now, Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to sort of draw a little bit more detail in those generals. So, for example, for the public safety complex, I think it would be reasonable to, within 6 months, arrange for a needs analysis for public safety complex, because you can't really plan for a building or a site until you know what you need. So would 6 months for a needs analysis for a public safety complex work?
How long does a needs analysis take?
Well, if at least I can get somebody under contract by that time. Hopefully, we may even be able to get something done quickly. It depends who you hire and how much time that they have.
I really don't want to start at baseline zero, because I think a lot of that needs analysis was done on the previous conceptual plan. So I'd like you to review that plan.
Okay, so then review the prior needs analysis.
Right. And the conceptual plan.
Can I jump in? Maybe meet, well, we have a new director now, and maybe meet with the
Correct.
deputy chiefs on that and see if it's still accurate, see what maybe.
Okay, so in 6 months, review the existing conceptual plan with the public safety director and the 2 deputy chiefs, and come forward with a report. That sounds like a reasonable objective.
Including the court.
Including court, yes, okay. All right, the next one that I see is restore the Office of Economic Development and Public Relations. What I think, considering what time of year we're in, I think definitely within the proposed budget, develop a plan to address that particular goal. I think I can have a plan in the budget for that.
Did anyone have any specific ideas? Like,
Well, I was
Specific
thinking,
ideas.
right, we're talking about Office of Economic, like hire someone or like that kind of sort of.
I'd like to see somebody hired, or else to have our city manager do it. And, you know, that was one of the reasons why we liked him, was because he had done so much in Pontiac to jumpstart there. So I think your ideas and whether it's necessary to hire an additional person to also cover some of the DDA, I mean, it's the city per se. There's a lot of opportunity out there right now. Be community development as well as economic development related to businesses. So.
So I think a plan for the budget would be appropriate. And then let me see here, I took a tally. So the next 2 are tied. More revenue for public safety and city services. I think a reasonable objective for this would be to develop a list of potential untapped revenue sources that can be considered. And I'm not going to limit it directly to public safety or city services, because obviously only certain grants are subject specific, but there may be other general forms that could potentially be identified. So I could develop a list. I'm going to say that one will be within, let's see, I know I've got budget coming up.
5 minutes.
For a little bit more reasonable time on that one, I'd say by August the 1st. I can concentrate on the budget for what we need, and then by August the 1st, well, here's what we can look at for the following year.
So you have a goal of how we can bring in revenue, and you'll give us.
Identify those additional sources by August 1st.
So,
The other two that I mentioned would be reasonable within 6 months or even within the budget time frame.
but our budget is due by June 1st.
Correct.
Okay, so you're gonna have this before June.
The additional revenues, I said by August 1st. The first one for the public safety complex, that review can be completed within 6 months and most likely before the budget, because we'll probably have to include, and same thing with the plan for the restoration of the economic development. Theoretically, 6 months, realistically, it's going to come with the budget. Let's see here. The next one that had a highest level was infrastructure. And we already have plans for streets, stormwater, and sanitary lines for infrastructure. We are missing a review for water mains. At least I couldn't find one in my office. So I don't know if you're looking for me to complete that four-pronged process by having some sort of a study identified for water mains, or just take what we already have in terms of a plan and try and develop some sort of an implementation and budget.
Yeah, I think I was more like wanted to like improve the progress we're doing. Like right now, I don't believe that we're doing enough to keep up with what we're gonna need to do in the future. I don't wanna get too far behind. I feel like we already are too far behind. So to come up with the funds to maybe improve how much we're doing every year.
Identify funding sources for infrastructure. And we'll call those the previously identified, which were the three that I mentioned, road, storm, and sanitary.
And we do have water already.
Yes.
Water is already done.
I think it is too.
Yeah, it's in
Okay.
our capital improvement plans from last year.
All right, what I was referencing, there were actually plans done by AEW
Right.
that
For streets,
uh,
yes.
rated, assessed, and then identified needs more specifically along with short-term and long-term budgets.
right.
I haven't seen one for water.
But water was included in that.
There's one somewhere. I don't know where it's in your office, but there was one done.
It was included in that broad spectrum.
All right.
And just to, I don't think what Sarah was saying is necessarily just about looking at the plans, but also maybe looking at how much we put into capital improvement, like budget for fixing. If
And-
that makes sense.
And that was
Well-
done for 5 years, but we backed down a little bit this past year.
And you did just meet with AEW, I believe, right?
Yes, I did. So I honestly believe that this will probably be included in the proposed budget as well, so that's reasonable to achieve. And then,
This one is the easiest one on your list.
maybe, maybe not. And then the final one, of course, is the pension and the OPEB. Now, I'm curious as to see what type of goal and objective council would like to see on that one, because obviously I have brought forth the Legacy Commission as a proposal, so where would you like to go with that?
Yeah, I think any ideas like that, and just kind of keeping on the ball, since it changes so much and can change from year to year. You know, was 100% funded at one point, but with the market and all that, it's not. And just
So maintain regular updates.
yeah, and just anything like this bonding idea, like any ideas that come up through state legislation, just anything to keep it going smoothly.
Okay, I view that as a long-term goal that will be updated on a somewhat regular basis, but it's not nothing where there is something very date-specific, where I have to present a report on, every 3 months or every 6 months as things come up to keep council informed on that. I believe that those are clear and reasonable to me. I would trust that when the minutes are put together and this resolution is worded, that the essence of everything that was discussed will be included in there, unless one council member actually wants to put this into a formal language, or trust that our minute taker and my notes will be good enough to, if these are approved, that they will accurately reflect what was discussed.
I know on here it said events. I know that's not the biggest major thing on here, but to a certain extent, it's important. I was talking to Mr. DeMonico about having an event at City Hall and pretty much naming it Welcome to Eastpointe event, and having all the organizations come out that people don't know about, such as the Kiwanis Club, Rotary Club, Odd Fellows, the Lions Club. All these people have like a table inside of here, outside the hall, have PACE, have it be a good way for people to meet you, the council, the director, and just and then they can leave with information about the city of Eastpointe. I think a lot of people, and then the military museum can be here, different commissioners from different commissions can be here, and then they can talk about how they can volunteer. I think that would be good for the city, have a welcome to Eastpointe for people that live here that don't know what's going on, people that's new to the city, they can know about, like I said, the organizations, how they can be a volunteer and meet the leaders of their community and also meet a neighbor. So I think that, and then we can have some of the local restaurants maybe want to sponsor some of the food so people can know what's going on in the city. I don't think that we do that enough. I know Cardi said you guys did it 4 years ago.
Something like that.
And something like that. So I just think that'll be a good idea to introduce people to the city, what we're doing and new things that we're doing, and get new volunteers into the city.
If I may, Madam Mayor, Council Member, that would sort of be like a one-time event, but I'm sure what you're trying to accomplish is something that will be continued on a regular basis. And one suggestion I would have, and I don't know if we have the equipment here, I know I did with my former employer, is essentially sort of do like a videotape where we have these representatives of these boards make some comments, put it all together, and then we can run it over our government access TV, sort of as a welcome to Eastpointe. Here's what we have in the community. Here's our organization. So it's not just a one-time, it's a continual that could be broadcast on a monthly basis or something to that effect. Or that's not really what you're looking for. You just really want a one-time event.
Even if we did it every year, I think being more personal, the social media is not personal, texting, emailing. It's good to get news out there, but people to actually meet the leaders or the organizers of these events in a more personal way, they can ask questions. You can't ask a video a question.
Mm-hmm.
So have these people out and meeting these people. They can get signed up to be a part of the Rotary, the Lions Club. They can be updated on events in the city of Eastpointe. So I think having it, we have events all the time like the tree lighting, and we have people in the hallway. So we can have, even the library, when they have events and stuff like that, the library commission can sign kids up and just let people know, what's going on in the city of Eastpointe. I think that'd be a good idea. I don't think that would cost the city any money just to have these people here. That's a free event. People, can know about how to buy a home in Eastpointe, the resources that we have in Eastpointe, and a lot of things like that. So I think more personal is the way to get people up and out the houses and meeting residents. And also I think that'll be beneficial because Director Rohib is trying to start a neighborhood watch, and he can probably get a list of people that maybe want to be a part of that and also meet him that day. So you can't do that on a video, but that's a good idea though. But so maybe you can pretty much put that together, and if you need help, I'll help you with that.
I always accept help. So we did discuss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items in greater detail, and then Councilmember Owens added a 6th. I don't have any objections going with 6, provided I have until August the 1st on that one, considering, just want to give myself some time because we have to coordinate a lot of groups on that.
Well, like I said, I can help you with that. I would really like to see that closer to the summertime. I don't want it to be cold. I want people to be that's out and things like that. So you said 6 months to do that?
I said August the 1st.
August 1st. How many months is that? About 4?
Yeah, it's like 6.5.
6.5.
We did that
Hosting it in August.
Well, if you guys did it before, it shouldn't be 6 months, should it?
We did that before with a chili cook-off, and we had all the different groups come forward and make chili, but also bring information about their individual groups. One of the problems we have is that many of the people that work on the cruise are also Lions or
Everybody does the
other
same thing.
fraternal organizations, and it becomes a little bit difficult. So.
That's another reason why August might be better to do it like in August or September, because the cruise is already over.
Just have to worry about vacations at that time. You really can't do very much until until just before school starts.
We'll go forward with that optimistically. So I won't say 6.5 months, but just as you work on it and whatever you need from me to make it go quicker, just ask me, because I know a lot of these clubs myself, and I can get in the, and I'm with a lot of the business owners in the city of Eastpointe that would love to be a part of that. So if you need help, let me know. Okay.
Okay, I obviously have to see what type of resources I have in the city hall as well, so.
Okay.
But we're looking at 6. I think that's relatively reasonable. It's not too overwhelming, considering that we are going into budget prep season.
I wanted to clarify, are you viewing city goals and what might possibly be goals that we follow up with you on as synonymous?
In many cases, yes. However, I realize that there may be some individual things that you're going to want to evaluate me on, and I was able to obtain a copy of the last performance evaluation criteria. I haven't had a chance to review that particular form. Once I do, I'll probably send that to City Council with some comments, and obviously that's how, I'm sure there are some things in there that I will be evaluated on that aren't necessarily towards goals and objectives. It's maybe how I do my job, communication, things such as that.
Because so there's one thing, it's not a city goal, but you guys going into budget, I think we have to discuss what council wants as a budget format. I'm not sure what the rest of council is thinking, but I would like to move towards a line item type format. Again, that's not a city goal, so I don't know if we should discuss that now or discuss that maybe under your report or.
Well, I'm sort of referencing budget development on my report, so maybe that would be more timely at that time.
Tonight,
Tonight,
budget development,
I'm referencing it in my report.
okay?
Can't start early enough.
All right, are we done with goal setting?
Then council properly would need to move and support a motion to set the goals and objectives as discussed.
Do we have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Item B is adoption of resolution number to create a legacy commission for the city. There is no number.
It won't be assigned until it's actually adopted, so
Okay.
we'll change that format. That's why I gave it a title. Resolution to create a legacy commission for the city of Eastpointe.
Do we have a motion to bring it to the table for discussion?
Madam Mayor, I motion to adopt resolution number to be determined, create a legacy commission for the city of Eastpointe.
Support.
Move and support. Discussion on the topic?
Yeah.
I still have mixed feelings on the function of this. However, if we made a couple of changes, if a commission wants to meet, I don't think we're going to get a very productive, at least funding-wise, solutions. But I would like to see at least the 50 for professional services cut to 25. And I would also like to include a provision, although I believe there's a rule in our charter that the members are unpaid. And those are two things that would be important for me to support this.
And I had a question about that as well, because if you utilize the police and firefighters and clerical and labor, are they going to be coming in on their own time, or are they going to be coming in and being paid by the city at the same time? Because usually before we get to negotiations, we essentially do the same thing as what you want to do in this. So I'm wondering where the difference is.
Well, the intention behind this, Madam Mayor, was to get volunteers among the city employees who, especially those who live here, to come in and volunteer their time to share thoughts, ideas, talk with residents as well and sort of work towards some possibilities that could potentially be considered by the city council. So this would be my whole intention was for this to be a voluntary membership, unpaid on the commission. Granted, if I have to have someone in here taking minutes, then that would probably be compensated because they're actually working and doing their job.
So I did have a question again about the actuaries, because MERS, as I recall, has their own actuaries, is that correct?
Right, and that's why I don't have an objection to Councilman Kleinfeld's reduction for the expenses from 50 to 25,000, because when Mr. Blum and I met with MERS last week? Last Wednesday, we were able to get a couple freebies in terms of some reports that this commission will find useful. So I think we may be able to get a few more out of them, but just in case they want to ask us for contribution, I don't want to be in a position where we don't have that possibility. So that's why I have no objections to dropping down to 25,000. And quite honestly, I don't think we're going to need to get there unless things really get complicated or someone comes up with an idea that I haven't come up with, then there may need to be some research done that may involve some professional services.
And then I guess my other question was the video technicians. Why were you going to use video techs?
It's important that these meetings be recorded and televised for the public. We are really getting the public involved in making a recommendation, and if the public's going to be making a recommendation to the city council, it's also important for the public at home watching or even being present to have the ability to have that public input as well into the process. So when a recommendation does come to the city council, in theory it will be well vetted in terms of public being part of the recommendation directly and also indirectly through watching on TV or on video, because these are very complicated documents sometimes, and just seeing one presentation at a council meeting may not be enough. You may need to see it a couple of times, or it may need to be explained a couple of different ways. We're talking big dollars over here, so better that the public is informed through whatever means necessary, I think is very important. And I will say I have seen this type of an arrangement work in another community in Oakland County where they get the public involved in these rather large decisions or controversial decisions. So when the council actually made a decision, there isn't that public outcry, well, we weren't informed, we didn't know what's going on, we didn't have a part of the process. And it seems to work for that community. It may look cumbersome, but I think the benefits really are demonstrated by the end product.
And the other thing is, how are the public commissioners chosen?
All the commissioners will be appointed by the city council. So if this resolution passes today, my intention is to communicate to all the employee groups and to all the employees to advise them that we would like a volunteer to serve. And then also we're going to, I see we have a member from the media here and who's busy writing away. And I'm sure that this will get some good ink, so maybe we'll get some residents through that. We'll advertise through the city's Facebook page, on our government access TV. We'll get the word out, and I'm sure if council members have people who they believe they would like to have serve, we'll have them submit an application, or even members sitting here in the audience might have an interest in having a little bit more active role in how the money is either spent or raised, depending on how those recommendations may go. We're hoping to have everything done within a month so that this commission can actually meet on Tuesday, February the 16th.
Do you want to share the name of the community that has?
Yes, it was Birmingham.
Okay.
It was Birmingham.
Tuesday, February 16th.
I'm sorry, Tuesday, February 26th would be the first
and you
meeting.
want the committee to be all in place.
By Tuesday, February 19th. So in other words, we have a month.
And we're going to appoint the commissioner members on the 16th.
On the 19th of February.
Good luck.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know if it's necessary to have dates in there, because I don't know that you're going to be able to find, how many is it total, 12?
About 12, I think half from the employee retiree ranks, and we'll be sending letters to the retirees, and the other half from the business community and the residents at large.
We're sending letters to the retirees that
Live in
the
city, correct.
Yeah, I think you might have a hard time finding 12 people quickly that want to talk about pension and OPEB liability. So, I mean, if you do, that's, if there's people out there that love it and I don't know that, then, you know.
Well, Harvey, who is it? Mr. Curley served as the chairman of the pension board for how many thousand years, Harvey? So we have a motion on the table and it's been supported and we've discussed it. Any further discussion or questions?
Just my one idea from last time where I think it'd be a better idea to get more information and then each bargaining unit can just select their active or retiree who would have both sets of groups in mind, just one from each group instead of the way it's set up here where it's one active and retiree from each of the three groups.
That are residents.
Um,
That's gonna be hard to find.
I think there's a preference for residents when it came to the employee and retiree
Correct.
selections.
Preference.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Cardi? You wanted to change it so?
So just each bargaining unit sends one person, or nominates one person to the commission, as opposed to
Grouping.
one active and retiree from each of the three groups listed.
So in other words, instead of having one active representative from police command and police patrol, have one police patrol and one police command active?
Yeah, and they can either put a active or retiree forward, whoever the union wants to nominate, essentially.
I think you also need a retired.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I
Retiree.
think we need to have the same amount of active as retirees.
I do too.
I think they need to be the same number.
I think, eventually
don't
the
want-
actives will be retired, and
No,
we'll want,
you're right, but
But it's the retirees that are currently receiving.
yeah, I think it's important to have it the same number represented of active and retired.
Right, and when I was creating this, I really tried to break it down the middle as much as I possibly can. Active and retirees, employee retirees versus property owners who are not employees or retirees, and then putting the 80% margin in terms of carrying something, using the Cobo Hall management example, so that there can really be a consensus built. There's not one group dominating over another group. I did give that a lot of thought. And actually, my original proposal, I think, was 22 people with one rep from each union, and my fellow department heads talked me down off of that cliff. They said it's never going to happen.
that's too many people for one group to.
Yes.
Because there are some differences, like the retirees that we have retiring 20 years from now are going to receive different benefits than what our retirees are receiving now. So that's why I think it's important to have the same amount of people,
Right, well, I mean, like, so
be equally represented.
the group of command and patrol, they each have a separate bargaining agreement, so,
But we're not doing collective bargaining, we're doing brainstorming.
well, right, but the brainstorming will be ideas like, how can we save money on healthcare, like we have recently.
Exactly.
Things like that that'll, would eventually be,
Okay, and the other
Most likely
change then
those
that we wanted to
ideas.
do was to reduce the amount of money from 50,000 to 25,000.
Yeah, I there's a couple other points I wanted to make, so I'm not sure if this needs to be revised before we take action on it, because I think there might be a lot that's changing. I actually would want to remove the preference for property owners. I think that those members, their interest in the having the pension in the OPEB. We already do resident on one side. I don't think that's necessary for the other side. They might be more interested. But if council wants to leave property owners, I'd rather change it to taxpayers or residents.
are you saying just, or are you saying essentially strike that last line in the?
I'd like to get rid of it altogether. I don't think preference for property owners is necessary.
For the bargaining unit part, or for?
Yeah, that,
Or like the employee groups, I should say.
the employee groups, yes. I'm not sure how I feel about the resident side of it. I'd probably rather change it to people who pay, reference them as someone who's paying property tax. If they're a renter or something like that and they pay their property tax for some reason, whatever the agreement is. I just don't,
I think you need to leave it as just resident,
okay.
and not define whether they're property owners or.
I do like that better. I think that would,
So in the first, be it further resolved, that last line would read, with the preference being residents.
Correct.
For taxpayers.
You have here the first preference being resident property owners and the second preference being resident tenants. I think I would just leave it being residents.
and I did have a question on the provision for 4 resident non-employees or retirees and 2 resident non-employee business owners. So do they have to be residents and business owners? Are you trying to just do business owners?
We're trying to ensure that the business community, in terms of the people who own the buildings, who pay the taxes, have representation. So we're saying 2 business owners who weren't city employees, who aren't city employees and who aren't retirees, because they're already being represented with that subgroup. So we just want business property owners, and then also resident property owners who weren't current employees or retirees.
I might clean up that language, because when I saw resident business owner, I thought someone who lives in a house here, not that their commercial property is located here.
Yeah, so I was speaking specifically commercial.
You said Birmingham uses this same thing?
The concept of getting the residents involved in commissions that are created as public bodies under the Open Meetings Act to study ideas and concepts and make recommendations to the City Council.
And how much do they have? How much do they charge? Is theirs 50,000, 25? How much is theirs in their budget?
Oh, in most cases, they don't have any specific allocations because, for example, one such commission, I think, was instituted to install bike lanes on a street. Well, the city already has a consultant under contract for that particular purpose, so it isn't something over and above that consultant's normal responsibilities.
I mean, I just feel that we have Mr. Blum, we have you with the background and knowing about the pension and OPEB and things like that. We're spending more money just for other groups, and we have unions, we have all these people that we already pay to do all these things, and we're paying more people to do the same thing.
I wouldn't say the same thing. I would say these would be more technical concerns, and I'm not sure to what extent Mr. Blum's skill set is in terms of actuarial estimates and or the time that you'll have, considering we will be in the middle of budget at that time. So,
well, anything, any idea over 5,000 still come in front of us to approve or deny.
Exactly.
So,
I think that his goal here is to try and develop a consensus about what's the proper way, what's the right way to go, or the best way that's accepted by this variable group of people.
And I think the idea just to allocate the money was just to leave open the idea in case there was some ingenious idea that would take some third party to help with.
correct.
I think, right?
Correct.
Has this idea helped Birmingham in any way?
From what I've been able to observe, they've done it on several occasions, and I have yet to see any time where they are receiving complaints from at their commission meetings as a result of decisions that were made through this open deliberative process.
I mean, we still gonna owe the money. It's not gonna keep us out the deficit. So my thing is, I'd rather not spend $25,000 and put that toward making income on, or interest on.
Well, let me give you an example, council member. Up until September 1st, the city owed the money for the OPEB. But as of today, we don't owe $8 million because we found a concession. So I think that maybe this commission will find ways to cut expenses for OPEB in one way or another, like we already have started doing. So I wouldn't say it's definite firm, well, this is the money and this is a solid amount. Pension is one argument. OPEB, well, we've already found a way to reduce that by $8 billion. The commission may be able to find some other ways of doing it.
If we were able to save $8 million on our own with our own resources without a legacy commission, why couldn't we do that on a continued basis?
I think the decision-making process gets a lot harder.
That's why we have you.
And I could come up with some very controversial decisions, and I don't know if City Council would be prepared to vote on those.
Mr. Blum, did you have something to add?
Actually, when you talk about employees, are we going to use the civil service definition of an employee? So could a part-time resident be a resident member because they're technically not a civil service employee? Because you might actually have more interest of people that work here that aren't entitled to any of the benefits. Just a thought.
I think that it would have to be a union, like a civil service employee, but those people could still be qualified for a resident.
The part-time.
Right, that's what I said.
Part-timers
Part-timer could be a resident rep.
Could be a resident
Yeah,
rep,
okay,
yes, that's
all
what I
right.
think, that's.
Right, because they're not in any of the employee groups.
And when you're saying resident, the reason why you're saying resident is because they're taxpayers.
Correct.
And so they understand the same, I mean, they're in the same position as the people that are paying all these things.
You see, I happen to know what the worst-case scenario is if we don't make a payment, and it's going to impact the property owners.
Correct.
So I think the property owners have the most interest in identifying a solution that will minimize any drastic impact.
I'm sorry, Randy, is this in the, did you mention this in the corrective action plans?
Yes.
Okay.
We wrote it assuming this would be adopted. If not, we would have to modify the corrective action plan.
And when's the plan due?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
1 week.
Technically Sunday, but
Holidays and
my whole
weekends.
thing. I think it's a good idea. I'm just getting tired of keep spending money. We have so many things that we need to pay for already. Things aren't being done, and yet we have a pension deficit. We got buildings that need to be fixed. We got commissions that are not filled, and we're trying to open another one, and this one will cost us. We have tax reversion houses that need to be fixed up, and in a couple more months, we're gonna be buying some more tax reversion houses. I just think we keep on spending money, and I need to see money coming in. I don't see any money coming in yet.
Monique, if you don't mind, I realize, I mean, but I don't want to spend any money either. I agree with you there. But at the same time, I think the idea behind this is this money is just going to be allocated for a resource if they need it. And it's long-term. We're not going to approve them to spend any of this money because, like Cardi said, it'd have to be brought to us anyways, unless we think that their ideas really could save us a lot more money than this $25,000. So if they have a plan or they come up with an idea and we need, something done to prove that it's going to save us more than $25,000 is the only way we're going to spend this $25,000. So long-term, it would save us more money.
Yeah, I'd look at it as an investment, I guess,
Right.
essentially, is how
yeah,
it's-
absolutely.
if it's a, $10,000 study that saves like,
That's going to show that we
million
could
or
do this
$8
and we could
million,
save, $1 million a year,
And we're already tax limited, so.
A little bit of my thinking on that was, I don't think administration would prepare or request any information for the commission that they probably wouldn't do internally anyway. Because we have to pay an actuary they have to have the license and all that to be able to generate numbers. This is something I prefer to see as like an ordinance. I think it makes more sense when you create a commission to put it in an ordinance and a resolution. But I don't know if council wants to move on this because it's in our CAP that we're going to be approving tonight for the treasury.
And Councilman, if I may, Birmingham does not create ordinances for all of their advisory groups.
So this is actually an advisory group as opposed to being a commission. And I think that's where we're bogged down with this, is we're feeling that in order for us to create an ordinance, we develop a commission, we create an ordinance to develop the commission. Whereas we could just change the terminology and say that this was an advisory council, it would make us feel a little bit better about it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we have ethics provisions in our ordinances and charter. I would want to see one included to make it clear, you know, that no gifts and things like that are changing hands when making a recommendation on something as big as this.
I think we can add a clause that indicates that the members serving shall abide by the city's ethics ordinance.
We could just add that.
Right.
And since, of course, I think to what you're saying, Councilman Kleinfeld, about the having to pass it today just because of the action plan, I wouldn't mind if folks did want like 3 more weeks till our next meeting. I mean, this is a very long-term thing we're talking about, so rushing a quick group through if people don't feel comfortable, I think is fine. And I think in that action plan, we probably could just say we are planning on most likely creating a commission, I guess. I'm sure that
Yeah, we
would
could always
be-
go ahead with, we're just
Yeah,
going through the final details of it.
right.
What do you think they'd say about that?
Actually, the commission per se doesn't demonstrate to them that we will be at 60% funding within a certain period of time. What it tells them is we're seriously looking at ways to get to the 60% funding. So technically, including this doesn't meet the technical aspects of meeting the law, but in terms of having Treasury understand that, yes, we're serious, I think it helps to demonstrate that, hey, you suggested this, we're taking you up on this.
But you can tell them that we're in the process of developing it and we'd have it done by the end of February?
No, I cannot tell them because we will not be at the meetings when these plans will be considered. It has to actually be in the plan. So if council is not comfortable voting on this resolution this evening, but you are comfortable and will probably be voting on it at a subsequent meeting, we can change the wording in the action plan to indicate that council is strongly considering or considering, however you wish to word that in the plan that we submit. I think it helps Treasury and the body that is reviewing this to understand how serious we are. But in terms of technically meeting the requirement of the law where they bless and say, okay, this is approved, no, that would not meet it.
Yeah, and
So, council, I just have to quip here, because one of my mayors called me and said they were just really upset about the 60% thing that has to be into Treasury. And so they wrote back to they were writing a letter back to the Treasury and saying they were gonna have a bake sale every single day for the next 3 months and try to raise the amount of money from 20% to 60%. All right, I'm sorry.
And I can tell you
I
that.
just thought a daily bake sale is just.
But technically, a submission of that plan complies with Public Act 202 because an actual plan was submitted by the deadline. It may not be feasible, it will be rejected, but it technically keeps the city in compliance with Public Act 202, so should they decide to issue a bond, they would still be legally able to do that. So there is a technicality there that they would technically be in compliance, but obviously the plan will be rejected. We had that interesting conversation with Treasury, correct, Mr. Blum?
I reiterate, I hate the state.
Maybe making a
all
lot
right.
of cookies.
Well, I mean, and I think our plan's just gonna be rejected either way, whether or not this is in here. So I'd like to postpone this to get it redrafted because there's just too many changes, I think.
All right, Madam Mayor, I'll motion to change my motion to table this so we can update it with the changes that we discussed this evening until the next meeting on February 5th, I believe it is.
Yes.
Support.
Move and support to table this motion. Please call the roll.
Did Mr. Kleinfeld support that one?
Yes, he
Correct.
did.
Okay.
He made the motion supported by Lucia.
Actually, Lucido made it.
I made it, yeah.
Kleinfeld
It's
supported.
just a different support that I had for the original. Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
Move on to our next unfinished business, which is to schedule the joint City Council Eastpointe School Board meeting, and I believe we are given 3 dates.
Actually, the school board has asked for some dates in February, so I suggested, well, let's see if we can come up with 3, and maybe they'll be able to pick one. And then it dawned on me after I submitted this that council may want to identify what agenda items you wish to discuss at this meeting, because the superintendent has reached out to me to also identify what agenda items will be. I know I have shared 3 suggestions with council, and I don't know if you'd like to discuss those and add those, or if you have some other ones that you'd like to discuss, but it maybe would even be proper at this time to not only identify some dates, but also what some potential agenda items may be. And then I will work with the superintendent, and we will coordinate schedules, and as soon as we have an agreement, then that information will be sent to council and posted publicly, of course.
Does anyone have 3 dates?
I do. Well, you go ahead.
I was just going to say I had the 4th and the 12th down, so Monday the 4th and Tuesday the 12th. And then if we had to have a third, I had the 18th, but that's President's Day. I think the rest of the days we either had, on Mondays or Tuesdays, we had a meeting or they had a meeting, because we had an extra meeting for, or actually I added in the meeting for the commission, so actually that probably won't
So how about if
happen
we
on
just
that
give
day.
them those 2 dates?
Yeah, I'm not available on the 18th.
Okay.
How about the 12th?
That wasn't my preference anyway. So.
The 12th I am available. Does it have to be on a Monday or Tuesday?
No, I just suggested those because that's usually when.
I mean, yeah, so I would say, I mean, I could do the 12th, the 6th, or the 20th also. I mean,
I have the 5th, the 19th, and the 11th down.
the 5th, we have a council meeting.
Why we can't have it before the council meeting?
And then the 11th, I think, is a school board meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except we're doing show cause hearings in February.
Yeah, that's gonna
Oh, yeah,
make it
those two
really
show cause
long.
hearings.
I don't think we need a motion for this. Should we all just send a list of dates to Joseph? Because
Well, I think that if there's a specific date that someone recommends that someone else can't do, then we shouldn't put it on the list.
I sort of want to avoid the
So I think,
council having a conversation via email.
think a Wednesday.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like,
Wednesdays are usually the best, except the 2nd and 4th are the sanitary district meetings.
right in the second sparks also.
So the 6th.
When the 6th.
Or the
But as long as
20th.
that meeting would start after 6 o'clock, I could do that.
You guys want to do the 6th?
The 6th or the 20th, that's fine, I can do either one.
I just said the 6th too because I know on the 7th, we have the state of the city of Eastpointe, and then whatever happened that, at that meeting, we can announce it there too. Some good news and things like that.
The 7th, I have planning commission meeting.
Right. No.
Well, that's
you're
just-
saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've heard the 4th, the 6th, the 12th, and the 20th.
Sounded like the 6th.
The 6th.
Okay,
The 6th would be
Work for everyone.
what we would like the most.
what's number 2? Because we always need a backup.
20th.
20th?
you're looking at like 6 or 7, right? Like PM for, yeah, so all those dates would be fine with me.
And council, in terms of time, 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, no preference?
If it's on the 2nd or 4th Wednesday, please do it at 6:30 so I can get from St. Clair Shores over here.
Okay,
Those are the first and the thirds.
those are the 1st and the 3rd, yes.
Okay.
So 6:30?
Sure.
Okay.
As far as agenda items, I'd like to maybe review what we talked about at last year's meeting. Talk about what our current plans are and what we'd like to see in the future. I don't want to get into anything hostile that you're already discussing.
Actually, discussions have broken down,
Well,
which is why I thought it would be wise to bring it to the school board's attention, because I don't think we're satisfied with the responses that we're getting, or in some cases, we don't know if the school board's aware of the discussions.
well, we just swore in new people last night,
Right.
so let's, I'd rather not talk about that at this joint meeting, but maybe separately.
I agree.
Because I think it's up to Mr. McLeod to bring the new school board members up to date before we start discussing anything with it.
Well, are we talking about like a public safety officer? Is this the specific?
Right.
Well, that's-
Vaguely talking about right now?
Well, no, actually, that hasn't even been broached. We're more concerned about the matter before that, which are certain incidents that have been occurring at the school and how those are being
'Cause
handled.
they do have a new principal and stuff, and I think that there are some positive changes happening, so we might just,
Well, I think in terms of budget, though, I mean, the school board's in charge of the budget, and what's most important, I think they would want a safe
well,
school,
they kind of gave some joint goals to council last year, like related to Memorial Park, so I think we can talk about what we're
Yeah.
doing to improve Memorial Park and some of those other things, and what we're doing over at Roxana Park. I think that's a new future thing that we're doing, so.
But
those
aren't there
types of
any
things.
demands, requests that council would like to see of the school board? I see we're sort of responding to
No,
theirs.
I would like to hear what some of the changes they're doing at the high school, to alleviate some of their problems and some of the other changes, because they're doing a lot of things with preschool, so.
Now, I'd like to keep our discussion to policy objectives or like things we're willing to work together resource-wise. I don't want to get into administrative matters or comment on anything that's not our domain, you know, so
Yeah.
I want to be careful about that.
Although I will say budget is definitely domain, so if the resource officer request,
So I think,
because both bodies are in charge of budgets, so,
right, yeah, I would
and,
think.
and I'm suggesting we start with two, one
And
for each school.
We have discussed that same topic, 3 different meetings previously, so.
And I would believe that the director, Rohit, will be a part of that as well. Correct.
That would be good.
Well,
Because-
technically by charter, he has to be at the meeting, so.
Well, he has to be at the meeting, but I'd like him to have some points that he wants to talk about as well, since he is over the safety of the school and the city. I think what he has to say is important.
I just think you have to be really careful when you have brand new, and these are brand new people that were just sworn in last night, that probably don't have a lot of familiarity on past issues, so. They've only got 2 people that were from previous council.
I think it would be a nice idea also to discuss, maybe setting up some sort of, like charity event between some group in the city and some group in the schools, like whether it's like a baseball game or a basketball game, just for like good press and to kind of show that, you know, we are working together, and maybe charge a couple dollars for tickets and have the money go towards something, whether it is putting the money into Memorial Field, which we both benefit from because the city owns it and the school uses it, or something along the lines of that.
Might be fun, we have had in the past a basketball game at the
Yeah.
community center, which was with police and fire, opposing the school teachers.
Yeah,
And that
I
was
think
a-
something like that
That
would
was a
be.
really good event, and maybe we could do something baseball
Yeah.
in the spring.
I did like a free throw competition with Mr. Duchesne. We didn't do so hot against Roseville.
We lost again.
This time.
So
Rematch.
discussing some
Right.
sort of event like that, I think I would like to see on the agenda.
Okay, I have 4 items then for the agenda.
What 4 are they?
Review last year, current plans, future plans, and charity event.
Okay. I'd like to talk about student shadow program. I know that Dr. McLeod has talked to the school board members about it, but we would have to line up a date if we all wanted to do something together.
We really have to hustle on that if we want to do anything like Roseville does.
I am not aiming for that
That
well-developed
is
plan
just
straight out
a
of the gate.
dream come true.
We should try to just probably set like some sort of day in stone almost each year, since it seems like we do it one year and then
Right.
Recurring meeting date, okay.
that'd be good.
It really should be like the first week in May.
You're talking about just the government day type thing.
Just
right?
the shed, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about recurring
No, no.
joint school board council
No,
meeting.
Oh,
Government
that'd
Day
be
where
cute.
we have the students from the student assembly come over and shadow city council. and shadow administration?
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah.
I think the more we can get the students involved, I mean, I think it's good.
Well, I would like to, even if this is in the future, I would like to see some of the kids at the high school be interns for the city of Eastpointe. When I was 16 years old, I worked 2 years, so I was 18 for the city of Detroit. And when I turned 18, I took the test, of course, and worked for the city of Detroit. But I think that would be awesome. We can hire some of these kids to be interns and learn how to do accounting work, to, you know, do certain things with the city. So maybe
We
long
used to
term.
have a lot of intern programs.
Yeah, we
here.
used to, as the fire department used to hire someone to work in their office, police department did. Yeah,
Many of our current employees started off in the high school co-op programs, which I don't think exist anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing, they were all co-op positions, and I don't think they offer.
Yeah, there is a different structure for co-ops and formal internships through a university. That would be something I would really want to discuss with administration before we make any sort of commitments, because I've had interns be in the past, and they've been good, but a lot of times it's a time commitment, and we have to be sure, especially with a lot of the transition that's going on over here, that we would just not be having someone here sitting in front of a computer and answering the phone, that they'd be able to get something out of it. And I need to check with the administration to see if we have anything that can be done at the present time, and if we ourselves would have the time to devote presently. Maybe that's something that could be looked at in the future.
Well, there's a lot of jobs that we have for the city. We don't have a person that does the social media and things like that. It's a lot of small jobs that these kids can learn how to do and get the credits, so when they go to college, they can say they worked for a government entity and have the skills to back it up. So we do have jobs that you may know that they can help with.
But maybe just one day where they come in.
For now,
witness,
yeah.
Right,
rotate
that's
through
something
the
I think that
classes.
administration could probably handle.
'Cause Mr. Blum had one, correct, Mr. Blum?
It was a young man who had graduated already.
Oh, he
He worked here
graduated.
for a year after graduation. It wasn't during the high school year.
Okay.
Did we have Memorial Park on the list? Because now we, yeah,
We
okay.
just talked about the, like, updates from last meeting, so that'd be Memorial.
Yeah. I was just, we have a Parks Commission since then. The athletic director was at that one Parks Commission meeting, so I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, do you have enough to work on for that?
I have enough information.
All right, let's go on to reports from administration, and we'll start with Mr. Sabota.
Okay, a few updates. We have, one of our department heads has volunteered to develop a plan to honor our past mayors, presidents, and supervisors. So I believe the pictures have been located, so we'll allow some time to allow that plan to be developed, and then council will be properly advised. Regarding Facebook, I understand that it is a valuable modern communication tool. However, we are requesting that if you happen to see a water main break in the middle of the night, please do not post on Facebook. We do not monitor it 24/7. Please contact either dispatch or the front desk of the police department. We had a situation this weekend where someone found a water main break in the middle of the night, posted it on Facebook, and we discovered the posting in the morning when we reported for work on Monday. So please realize it's a valuable tool, and we have added a disclaimer at the top of the page as a result of this incident. But if anyone does see something that is an emergency, please don't post on Facebook. Please contact either dispatch or the police department, and they will contact the necessary individuals. As council has been made aware through a report earlier that I made, and also at this meeting, we did have a late bidder for the medical transport services. Our policy has been, and I think properly so, that there's a deadline. If you are late, then you cannot be considered. We did have the other two bidders there who were present on time. They were there when the bids were opened. I don't know how they would feel if we allowed another bidder to be accepted or considered. However, that is council's prerogative. And then in terms of actually getting together with the community, on Thursday, January 31st, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m., here in our council chambers. Director Rohib, along with Deputy Chief Kaiser and Deputy Chief Sage, and our Animal Control Officer will be here to have a slight presentation and to answer questions. And topics will be the philosophies behind the police and fire departments, how they operate, what the long-term vision is for those departments, the goals and objectives, projects that are being worked on, concerns that either the community or the departments may have, and an open question and answer period. So that will be on Thursday, January 31st, from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. in our council chamber. And I don't know if we're going to want to tape this, Director, but if we do, we'll do it live on TV, and then we'll do some rebroadcasting. But of course, if you want to ask a question, you have to be here. So, today marks the 3-month anniversary with the City of Eastpointe. And over the past 3 months, I have taken the time to personally review city operations, visit all non-park related city buildings, gather and analyze data, talk to city employees, and review various documents. I have had the opportunity to meet individually with all members of the City Council, meet or talk to residents to address their questions or concerns, and attend various meetings representing the city. As I indicated to Council during my first meeting, I intended to act as a sponge to soak up as much information as I possibly could, and I believe I have done so. But today I see myself transitioning into more of a filtering stage, being able to separate the good information from the bad, identifying processes and systems that work, and developing plans to improve areas that don't work or need refining. Fortunately, I have been pleasantly surprised by what I have discovered in Eastpointe. This is a community that expects and demands high-quality customer service down to the most minute details. For example, I spoke to a resident whom complained about a company that cut tall grass but failed to pull the weeds from the cracks in the sidewalks. This example truly demonstrates the pride that residents take in their property, in their neighborhood, and in their city. And we as public servants need to be mindful not only of our duty and responsibility to provide quality services, but to treat each person how we want to be treated. Although I note we seem to provide a good quality of service to our residents, I do believe that we can improve the efficiency of our service delivery. And within City Hall, I believe that there are some tasks that may take us 3 steps to accomplish that we probably can and should be able to accomplish in 2 or 1. And by improving efficiencies, that would allow us to improve the speed of our delivery to our customers or to provide additional services. Our police and fire departments do an excellent job working with the tools that they have to provide a level of service that keeps our residents and our property safe. I also understand that our Public Works Department does an excellent job in keeping our streets clean from snow and ice. And I think since I've been here, I haven't seen any snow or ice on the roads. Maybe sooner. I shouldn't have said that.
Tonight.
Yes. During my review, I did, however, identify 4 major areas of concern that need to be addressed, which can easily be grouped into 2 categories: legacy costs and infrastructure. Now I'll begin with my concerns about legacy costs. The first is the funding of our pension obligation. Our most recent audit demonstrated that the city has a $42.8 million liability. This is a real number that could potentially increase. This represents the amount of money that is owed to employees who have retired or who will soon be retiring. These benefits were granted by previous councils nearly 20 years ago. The pensions are guaranteed by the state constitution, so the city has a legal obligation to fund this deficit. This evening, council will be asked, through the state essentially, to approve a plan that demonstrates that this deficit will be addressed. The second challenge is related to the first challenge, and that is the funding of retiree health insurance, also called OPEB. Our most recent audit demonstrated that as of June 30th, 2018, the city has a $32.2 million liability. Fortunately, due to recent agreements made between the city and its 6 employee unions, we believe that this liability will be reduced by about $8 million. This still leaves a liability of about $24 million. And unlike the pension obligation, this debt is an easier issue to resolve, as we recently demonstrated through the collective bargaining process. However, more work needs to be done. And to place these two legacy costs in perspective, the city could sell all of the equipment it owns, all of the land that it owns, all of the buildings it owns, and all of the roads it owns, and still have about a $31.7 million deficit as of June 30th, 2018. However, if we sold all of our underground water and sewer pipes, then we could have $14 million in the bank. But then, of course, we wouldn't have a city, would we? That $14 million, however, could be used for another need of the city, and that's my third area of concern, and it was expressed earlier this evening, and that is the condition of our infrastructure, specifically our roads. In 2017, the city conducted an assessment of its entire street system, all 99.78 miles. The current condition of the city's roadway was determined using the Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating methodology, also known as PASER. The system consists of a simple 1 to 10 rating scale to describe the condition of the pavement. The study determined in 2017 that 16% of the roads were in good condition, 76% in fair condition, and 8% in poor condition, with an average rating of 5.3 out of 10. If the city would invest in the roads $4 million per year from 2018 through 2027, then we would be able to improve the PACER rating to 6.6 out of 10. In some parts of the city, we have separated storm and sanitary sewers. The storm water system was evaluated in October 2017, and rehabilitation and repair costs were estimated to be $2,304,000. These repairs would usually be coordinated with road repairs when possible, and having poor draining roads usually lead to poor road conditions. And usually when roads are replaced, the city should consider replacing the underground water and sanitary sewer lines, the fourth area of concern. A study conducted in October 2017 identified $12,264,000 in estimated repairs of the sanitary sewers needed at the time of the survey. An additional $17,687,000 was projected in future costs to repair and replace assets throughout the entire city over the next 5 to 20 years. Unfortunately, I have been unable to locate a study on the condition of the city's water mains, so I do not have an estimate on these replacement costs. The repairs to the water and sanitary sewer mains are funded primarily through water and sewer rates. Even as recently as June 30th, 2018, the city's water and sewer fund had a cash deficit of about $157,000. In other words, we had to borrow money to buy a pencil. Presently, the city is conducting a rate study to determine if the current water and sewer rates will not only adequately meet the day-to-day operating costs of the system, but also provide enough money to pay for water and sewer line replacement in the future. The city could pursue various grant opportunities to defray the costs of roads, water lines, and sewer lines. However, by now I hope that we have learned in life nothing is free, especially from the federal government, as grants usually come with chains and not strings attached. The city has some significant challenges to address, and I do not believe that we can count on or even demand that the state of Michigan bail us out on decisions that were made 20 years ago regarding legacy costs. However, under Act 51, the state does have an obligation to fund the roads, and they are anticipating increasing their support over the next few years. But those funds will barely address the needs of the system. And regarding water and sanitary sewer systems, those improvements are primarily funded by user fees. But the overarching challenge facing the city is how we can all come together to resolve these issues. Fortunately, there is not one correct answer, but rather several possibilities, each with their pros and cons. And my job is to help City Council solve these issues. First, I can help by providing information accurately and timely to the elected officials and to the public. I also need to be able to simplify complex information to help everyone understand. Just because I live and breathe and speak this language every day does not mean that all residents do the same. To communicate with residents, I want to make available to everyone documents and reports that highlight these issues as well as the operations of the city. And this will be done primarily through the city's webpage, which I admit needs some significant improvements. By the end of the month, I hope to post each of the 3 studies I previously identified that represent the condition of the roads and sewer systems and the projected costs for repairs. I have already posted the contracts that the city has with its vendors, and those can be found on the Finance Department webpage. I also intend to post all lease agreements that we have with persons or corporations that rent property from the city. Additionally, we have started posting monthly financial reports. Only the first 3 months of the fiscal year have been posted in a very rudimentary format. I intend that additional reports will be posted by the end of February and updated by the 10th of each month thereafter. I should say updated reports by the 10th of each day of each month thereafter. And these reports will be accompanied with an explanatory cover letter that puts the numbers into words so that all readers will understand and appreciate the financial condition of the city at the end of each calendar month. And to provide more information about day-to-day operations, I will be posting annual reports prepared by each department head. And these reports are intended to summarize the purpose of each department, highlights of the previous year, short-term and long-term departmental goals, data to monitor progress, and in future years, these reports will report on prior year goals. These are the departments that provide the daily service to our customers, the taxpayers, and I hope to have these online by the end of this month as well. In order to start the long-term planning process, I will be presenting a budget document that identifies the cost of the various programs with results. The budget document will not only include recommended appropriations for the following fiscal year, but also for the subsequent fiscal year, a 2-year budget. The budget will include a 6-year capital improvement plan that identifies items or projects of major significance, the estimated cost of the item or project, justification for the item or project, an estimated maintenance schedule if the item or project is completed, and an estimated maintenance schedule if the project or item is not completed as proposed. Obviously, funding options will be identified. Finally, if necessary, the budget will include the funding that may be necessary to fulfill the goals and objectives that Council identified earlier this evening. Remember, the budget is a planning document that communicates the goals and objectives of the City Council to the public. And the City Council and I cannot do this job alone. I need the help of city employees and department heads so that the appropriate and complete information can be presented to the City Council, which ultimately makes the final decisions. The City Council cannot do their job alone either. Not only does the Council need the support of administration, but the City Council does need the support of the public. The City has several boards and commissions that provide a valuable service to the City. Resident volunteers serve on these boards and commissions. However, in order for these boards and commissions to function, we need residents who are willing to donate a couple of hours of time each month to prepare for and attend the meetings. Many of these boards and commissions serve as advisors to the City Council, and thus those members can have a direct impact on the decision-making process of our elected officials. My intention and commitment is to have all agendas and minutes for every board and commission available online for public review. And we're getting there, but like I said, our website does need some improvement. And finally, Eastpointe, a family town, is proud of the level of service that it provides to the residents and taxpayers. And we have our challenges, but these aren't unique to Eastpointe. However, the challenges may need to be addressed sooner rather than later. Remember, our city is 90 years old, and I don't know of many 90-year-olds who are in excellent physical condition or excellent financial condition. Our younger neighbors to the north will soon be experiencing the same characteristics of an aging community and challenges. However, we may need to be the leaders to show them how to get the job done. And with that, I'm willing to take any questions.
All right. Before I forget, because I didn't want to put this on as a closed session item, But I wanted to find out from council or give direction to Joseph if we are going to cease consideration for now about expanding our parks, parkland, until maybe like the parks master plan is done or something like that. I bring that up because I think Love Life has a property, and they were like, well, if you guys want it, you know, first dibs. But I think at this point we might be holding them up.
I'm sorry, what was the?
I think at this
say the
time-
question again, hold on. What was the question? Say that one more time.
If we just want to stop consideration on that until maybe down the line when we have a parks plan or something like that, because that's really what you need for any possible grant money.
I think right now we should wait until the Parks Commission gets more well-established, and we definitely get a Parks Master Plan in place before we look into investing more money into expanding our parks.
I would agree.
I agree with that.
Okay. Could have been a closed session item, but I was excited not to have anything. Okay, budget direction. I mentioned earlier I would like to see us have a line item budget so that the informational sections are actually binding on budget appropriations. Also, with the specific allocation of positions that are funded.
Back up, informational sections are binding, is what would you say? that again?
Correct.
Let me explain. Right now, what is binding upon the city and what is audited by the auditors is the 4 or 5 page budget ordinance, which adopts budget by, in some cases, department, and in other cases, by fund. What council would be requesting is that the budget be prepared and be adopted in such a manner that the auditors then would audit every single account that we have in the city. So therefore, if the city is 1 penny or $1 over on any account, then that would be a write-up that would be reported to the Michigan Department of Treasury. And also in the event that, for example, we need an additional $1 to purchase a supply, before that supply could legally be purchased, we have to come to city council for a budget amendment.
I've been through both, and I don't think that anything was a bigger headache than the line item budget. Because it's not only in the development of the line item budget, but it's also in any time that they go over the line item. As an example, in the fire department, the council set the budget for gasoline to be used by the fire trucks at a certain amount. And anytime they went over that, then they had to come back. And I thought that was just absolute nonsense, because there's no way that you can predict how much gasoline you're gonna use by a fire engine in the next year. And it was just really difficult. I think we have some very, very competent department heads, and I would much prefer that we didn't use a line item specifically, but maybe just the category that we've been doing in the last 3 years. It works very effectively.
What did you mean by each account? Each account, though? Like, you're saying line item?
Yes, the way an account would be salaries department head, salaries part-time, salaries administrative, FICA, health insurance, dental insurance, optical insurance, longevity, office supplies. Okay.
I guess the concern is like departments or, let's say, you know, right now they have 4 staff and they're hiring, they're supposed, you know, they have enough money to hire a 5th, but then halfway through the year, they haven't hired that 5th one, so then they decide they can hire 2. You know what I'm saying? Because they have the money in that budget to hire like 2 positions now, because for the first half of the year, 1 position wasn't
But I
filled.
think that's where the administrator has to come into effect, to say, you didn't hire him earlier in the year, and you're only programmed, you're only for 1 person, so.
Well, I mean, that's the issue. They're not really set at any level. So last year when we went through the budget and we got into an argument in the public safety about whether or not to add a patrol or command officer. Realizing the way that our budget is structured now, that conversation meant nothing. We were essentially looking at an informational, suggestive part of the budget and not really making a decision. Now, I do think there's a possibility of something between a line item and what we have now, because I don't necessarily think we have to do, like Mr. Sabota said, wages, retirement or, pension. We could do personnel and,
It would be personnel, supplies, professional services, and other is the standard categorization under the chart of accounts.
I like your idea, Mike.
So, and even if it's a headache, I think that that's the purpose of a line item budget is if things are overrunning, they should come back to us. So,
I think that if they're going to be over budget, finance has to come back to us and say where we need amendments and he's always done that. So, in fact, we're about due to come forward with amendments, correct? Because we usually do it at the end of January. How about if we wait and see what our amendments are coming out to the budget that was presented?
I have a recommendation. What if maybe Mr. Sabota can come up with some ideas, like in between a line item budget and what we have now? Because I understand the concern with the line item budget, like being that specific for sure. But maybe something more like in between, a little bit more specific than what we have now.
I can identify the entire range from what I'm going to call the most flexible to the least flexible. There's
gotta
4 or
be in the
5
middle.
different types.
However, I'm very particular about how many personnel you have. If you set forth in our organizational plan that you have so many personnel in so many positions, I don't like to see those expanded. I think you should be limited to exactly what's in the budget related to personnel, because personnel is going to affect all the other costs, pension, benefits that go along with that.
Right. The state has developed, Madam Mayor, a budget manual with a suggested general appropriation ordinance, and there is a provision, I believe, in that sample ordinance that could address that particular concern. It is presently not in the current ordinance that council has adopted.
Okay.
So that particular concern can be addressed through a simple reference in the general appropriations ordinance.
So maybe you can bring that to us, because that's one of our concerns, is that are we hiring over and above what was budgeted in a previous thing? And is there a control over that factor? Because that's going to affect everything else.
Right. And in terms of personnel, the control factor is you cannot exceed the budget authorization. So if a position is created, for example, my intention would be to hire a police officer a month in advance of a known retirement, so that when the retired officer departs, we will have the person appropriately trained. And technically, if you do a position, I wouldn't be able to do something like that, but because there's savings in the department, it's being proactive and moving, so I've got that flexibility right now. So there's pros and cons to that.
All right, so you're gonna let us know about that most flexible, least flexible?
Yes, that's something that can very easily be developed and demonstrated.
That would be good.
all right, and I just wanted to bring that up now since I know you'll start developing that document somehow.
Yes.
I guess possibly in connection to that, because our budget doesn't put any controls in on hiring personnel. Everything just is within one department umbrella. So what is the current plan with the HR director position?
The current plan with the HR director position that was created by Civil Service as a classification level 8 is to advertise, where are we? January. So it has to be advertised for a month, so we're in the middle of February. Then we would have to arrange for a test. That could take anywhere from 2 to 4, potentially 6 weeks there. So we're already into March, and then assuming we're able to select someone, we're looking at early April at the earliest, and unless the person is unemployed, you're thinking 30 days notice So probably a person in that capacity would start in the month of May, and I believe council is aware of a key departure that is probably going to be happening, and this would be one of those situations akin to that of a police officer leaving, having someone in place and ready to hit the ground running, especially when you know there's a major transition that will be taking place.
But that position was never brought before council for approval.
That's correct, because under the administrative rules, the Civil Service Commission is the body that creates the position and approves the job classification.
But we approve the budget that's going to pay that person.
Correct.
Our current budget doesn't require that we approve it because
Right.
you just have, there's no limits, so.
Right, there's no limits. The realistic limit is I could hire, let's say, 1,000 people, but if I don't have enough money to pay 1,000 people by the authorized budget, then I obviously can't do that. So if there's money within the current budget appropriation, for example, we've had vacancies in, I think we've had, a position and a half in the finance department that's been vacant for a whole year. There's been a position in the city manager's office that's been vacant for a whole year. So there's vacant positions. So what you would do is you would reallocate within the authorized budget limits and fund that position for the balance of the year.
But I recall in 2008, we had 202 positions. And as those were emptying, because we had to survive, we didn't refill those positions. So when we went to do the budget the following year and the following year, we still had 202 positions, but legitimately we could only afford 102. So just because there is a position there doesn't mean we have to fill it. And if we're accomplishing the same thing, then it's not necessarily that we create all these new positions, and even though you might have something empty in finance, whatever. I think at some point in time, we have to limit the number of positions, or at least gain approval of council.
That's why we're looking at changing the budget, so we will have a little bit more control over that.
And I do agree with that because, for example, our wage and salary plan has police and fire chief still on there. That doesn't mean council has given a nod to, go fill those positions again.
So that's why I keep asking for an organizational chart so we can determine exactly what positions we should have. And the grade for each of those positions and the salary range for each of those positions.
What is the salary range for the level 8 classification?
Is that the?
That's the
level?
HR director. I want to say it's in the 70 to 85 range. I'm getting a nod that we're probably in that ballpark, 70 to 85.
I think at this point, I don't think we have to take formal action, but if we haven't had an HR director, that's a new thing. If we want to do that, I think it would be more appropriate to address that a few months from now when we do budget.
I
And
would
I
not
know-
even mind if we had a work session that we could discuss all the positions that you want to have and why, and what the salary impact is going to be.
Yeah, well, that might make
Salary
make
and
sense
benefits.
if council's willing to have a work session earlier than that to actually pin down and make decisions on this stuff,
I would be up for having a work session.
or meetings.
Why not?
Now, the current HR
see
person
something.
is you, correct?
I am technically by charter the city manager, the city clerk, and the personnel director. And the assistant city manager by charter is the deputy city clerk, obviously the assistant city manager, and by civil service rules is the deputy, or administrative rules, deputy personnel director. And the argument, I think, has been made and demonstrated. And there's also provision in the charter that says, should the city manager determine that the services of a full-time personnel director are necessary, then basically the manager can declare such and the position could be created. But I think I've made the argument that we are not doing justice by not having a full-time personnel director with a city of 157 full-time equivalent employees. And I came from a city with 30 full-time equivalent employees, and we had 1.5 people dedicated to
How did we
personnel.
get to 157?
All of our full-time employees and all of our part-times are become full-time equivalents.
I think my whole issue is
I think
when we're opening up these positions, when we're hiring people to do it, because we hired you to do the personnel and the HR, and now you want us to hire somebody to do what we hired you to partly do.
Right, and I have determined that based on the work that hasn't been done over the years and the work that needs to be done, that a full-time director is necessary. I don't want to identify how much liability we are probably facing as a city right now, just based on things we haven't done or need to do on a regular basis. Just like, for example, Mr. Altimus is not only the positions I indicate, he's also been designated as purchasing agent. So when we had elections, there was no purchasing done. So for essentially 2 to 3 months, we couldn't buy anything of any major nature because we didn't have a person available to prepare those bid specs. So what you're doing is you're sacrificing one function over another, because even though we have these responsibilities, there just isn't enough time in a day or in a week to do everything that needs to be done. We may have the capabilities of doing them, we may have the intentions of fulfilling these duties and responsibilities, but in reality, all we're doing is what's just the basics needed just to get by on a day-to-day basis.
So all of this has a history, and the history of the city is if we were going to survive and if we were going to provide police and fire and water and garbage pickup and so forth, we had to reduce the number of employees, and unfortunately it meant that our department heads had to double up. So we have a little bit more money because we've gone through some of the most difficult times the city has ever experienced. And so we're adding more positions. And I understand Mr. Altimus was doubled up. Randy was doubled up. The previous assessor also had the clerk's position. We've all done this and we've survived, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to foreclose, you're not going to forego any of the things related to budgeting and so forth. So all we need is a work session to say, this is what I want to do, these are the people I want to hire, these are the positions, so we have a good understanding, because in the long run, it's the taxpayers that we're having to protect, because there is no way that we can ever raise taxes to supplement anything at all that's going to happen in this city.
And that's correct.
And we're not going back out to our taxpayers one more time. We did it for SMORSA to protect our police and fire, but we can't do that again. So we got to be really careful about every single cent and every single employee that we hire.
And I'm very attuned and clear of that particular intention. My goal is not to increase any deficits or anything like that. It's to work within the appropriations that we presently have and shifting duties and responsibilities to the extent necessary to become more efficient.
And that's fine. We just need to
see
see
it.
what you're doing.
So, do we want to schedule a work session?
Seems like
Let's,
we need
yeah.
that.
Let's schedule that.
And I think one of my concerns is that when we hire someone and we give them a list of duties, that when they take the job, that we hire them for those duties, and when they say we can't do it, we open up another job what we hired them to do. So I'm just saying, we're gonna hire someone to be a maintenance / whatever. That's what they're signing up for, and not coming in saying, I just want to be a maintenance person, give this person the other half of my job. So
Well, I think maybe at the workshop, what we could do is go over responsibilities of each to, just talk about that
And
shifting of
I don't
responsibilities.
think council wants to pick and pick and pick. What we want to see is the organization and the changes that have happened that since you've been here or in the last year or so, and what the dollar figure on that is, how many more people have we hired, and where are they, and what's the quality, and are we hiring them in at a salary level that's equal to the area?
So do we
I will say this, what we're advertising for DPW director is probably higher than what the area's paying, but we couldn't attract anyone at a lower salary.
So should we send dates, or Joseph, do you want to send us dates? for,
If you want to
workshop?
set a date, that's fine, huh? This,
How much time do you think you need to get everything?
You have it all in your head. You can just spit
Yeah,
it
Right.
out
he
on a
probably
board.
does.
right. And I actually do have, did I do an org chart or not? I know I've got it in a spreadsheet. Did I do an org chart? I don't remember if I did an org chart. I probably didn't do an org chart. I just did a spreadsheet. So I'd have to put together an org chart.
Yeah, you show me. Ryan made one.
So maybe,
But,
maybe in February, mid-February or something, we can have a work session. It can be an hour before a regular council.
That would probably work, because I don't see this taking that
Hey,
much
it's
time.
not gonna take that much time.
Yeah. And in terms of an easy suggestion in terms of organizing information, the staffing history that's in the back of the budget, I think it's like 10 years long or something. Knowing if you fill these positions, what that would look like would be helpful, at least for me. And I think that's an easy document to
Because they are
update.
in the back of the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I have done in terms of a spreadsheet that I have created is I've reorganized it in terms of function. So, for example, the current org charter spreadsheet says building department has 10 employees. The way I would look at the building department, I would say, well, code enforcement has 4, rental program has 2, construction code enforcement has 3, vacant property has 1. In other words, I'm identifying the functions. So if I try to do a comparison to prior years, I don't have that historical information. I'm sort of looking at a going forward basis and from a functional standpoint, rather than, well, where we've been as a quote-unquote building department, because the total doesn't really tell you anything. There's 10 employees. It doesn't tell you what they do. I think breaking it down sort of does.
Just add them up.
Yeah, you can break them down, and then, yeah, we can still add them up in the.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can just add them up. And I like the idea of putting them into place according to function.
So next meeting, let's set a date for a.
You want to do it the next
Let's-
meeting, or maybe first or second week in February?
Well, I know we've
First or
got,
We
second
have,
meeting
we
in
have
February.
show cause hearings, right?
Yes.
So,
I really don't think a special meeting is necessary, and I don't think this is going to take that long.
what if we back it to the school board meeting? We do it after the joint meeting with the school board on the
Oh.
same night?
Sure.
I mean, because I don't think, instead of doing a separate date.
And every time we say the school board meeting's going to be shorter.
I
that
didn't
always
say
ends up
that,
being
that's why I
longer.
didn't say it out loud.
Uh,
I wasn't gonna say it out loud.
okay, I like that idea.
I'd rather do it just before a council meeting, maybe the second council meeting in February.
We have
Oh, we
show
have show
cause.
cause.
We have show cause throughout
We have show
February.
causing on both in February. Or we could do a separate day, or we could do it with the school board.
I sort of like the idea of a school board meeting. I'm trying to relish the fact that we have 3 weeks between council meetings.
Well, then do it after?
Yeah,
After the
after,
school
after
board
the school
meeting.
board meeting.
Okay.
And I have nothing else.
Did you bring this up?
Yeah, he did.
How about a very brief, just you met with AW about the water sewer rate study.
Yes.
Is there when's that gonna be done, or,
Well, they're actually doing a couple. They're doing one for the current year to demonstrate whether or not the rates that we're charging for the current year's budget will be sufficient to meet the needs of the system. And then they will be doing one for the future. And I want to say, what do we say, May for the future?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up on my part, but they're going to meet with us a couple more times. The first time through is just to get a sense of the expenses or the budget expenses, what they really meant. So we were talking apples to apples. They will refine their model and then come back a third time to answer any questions before it comes to council. The plan is that we will get something, well, we should have it actually in March because we're supposed to have it in time for the budget, which is supposed to be to council in the first meeting in April. So I'm assuming they will present it to council the second meeting in March. That would be my guess, but we will be meeting in February, probably twice in February to get ready for that meeting. And I would like to say that I was glad to see their model was very similar to the way I developed it over the past decade. The only thing is they have better data than I do. They have it earlier, I guess would be the better way to say it. We usually get some of the numbers in August, 3 months after we've set the budget. And AEW had not only more accurate information, but projections going out that we've never had access to before. So,
The sanitary district is currently starting on their budget.
Right.
So I think that's.
and that was one of the issues that was going to play into it. But yeah,
Now that we no longer work through Wayne County,
right.
we're hoping that we're going to be able to reduce some of those expenses.
Is it going to, oh, sorry.
Also, there was a thing in Crane's magazine as well as in Bridge today that GLWA has to do a lot more capital improvements. So that's supposed to be coming out in the next month or so. So that's going to
Great.
have a huge impact.
Will it show the rates on different amounts of infrastructure investment? Like,
Yep.
Okay.
And they're actually going to bring back a couple different options of how to charge. Kind of look at how we currently do it, look at some alternatives. Since a lot of our costs have moved to fixed fees, they're looking at, more of our charges being fixed fees and less being variable based on usage, things like that. But they'll all be presented to council.
And then next Tuesday, the Drain Commission has their meeting on their projects. So there was a $3 million grant, but the total original cost was $32 million. So I think they're hoping to get another grant, but they're bringing us up to date next week on Tuesday. So I think you got an invitation to that meeting? No?
Yeah, I thought there was one, well, it might have been Monday that I saw. You're talking about the drain?
No, the regular Drain Commission meeting was yesterday, but we hardly had anything on for Chapter 20.
Okay.
It was on Monday.
I
But
did get the one for
the
you.
other one is a special meeting.
I've not seen that one.
Oh, I'll send you the invitation because you should probably be there.
Okay.
That was all.
Is that your finance report?
Well, if you're done with Mr. Sabota, yes, I'm done. That was all I was going to have anyways, so.
I see
Any
the city-
questions for the finance director?
City attorney's willing and waiting to jump in.
Been waiting for a while.
I'm sorry, sir.
I have a very short report section, just a follow-up from last week's meeting. City administration has asked that 21 dangerous building hearings be scheduled. Those are scheduled over the course of February 18th and February 19th. And there was some discussion about show cause hearings. Yes, there are show cause hearings scheduled for February 5th and February 19th at 6 p.m. There will be 7 show cause hearings at the February 5th meeting and 6 show cause hearings at the February 19th meeting. And that's all I had, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city attorney?
Thank you.
Whoa, poor Mr. Sabota, you just really went through tonight. All right, let's start on new business, and our first item is the approval of the engineering for Roxana Park improvements. We have a motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll motion that that the Eastpointe City Council approve the proposal from Anderson, Eckstein and Westrick Incorporated for engineering and engineering-related services in relation to the Roxana Park project in the amount of $28,750.
Support.
You support it?
Did have a question. Why, it seems like a very high percentage of the project. I know it's smaller. I don't recall, it's 20% of the project.
Yeah, your construction, inspection, and administration's about 15%. Engineering, well, half that. You do have a $4,000 contingency in there. Usually those don't get spent, but they always put them in there. I think it's reasonable. I did talk to Mr. Pangori about this. I said, you know, you just hit the threshold where I had to send this to City Council. Just hit that magic number, and he said, it did? I said, yeah. So maybe next time he'll be, if we've got a number that close, he may drop his fees a little bit.
So can you do it this time? So can you do it this time?
No, I think we'll be getting it the next time.
All right, so we have a motion.
Good, go
Correct.
ahead.
We have a motion. And support. Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens.
Yes.
Our next item is special land use approval for the used tire sales and minor auto repairs.
Madam Mayor, I motion to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the special land use for used tire sales and minor auto repairs at 21007 Gratiot Avenue with conditions outlined in the planner's report on December 26, 2018, and hours of operation be limited to Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Support. Should this motion contain the waivers? Rich?
It should, and I was gonna suggest that, and also, just so there's clarification, and it's consistent with the planner's recommendation as well, with no Sunday hours, just so that's clear in the motion.
We have the owner in here. Did you want to, is it, can you, oh, you didn't want to say anything? Well, thanks for bringing your business to Eastpointe. How about that?
And there was one thing I wanted to clarify, because I didn't think it was clear from the letter. The tires don't need an enclosure, but they'll still be inside. They won't be stacked up outside. If that's,
The tires will be stored in the building, not outside.
okay, that's the only thing I wanted to make sure of.
What was the reason for, I was trying to figure this out, for the Sunday, no Sunday hours?
There were some neighbors there that were concerned about the noise, and they wanted the peace and quiet on Sunday. And Mr. Taylor agreed that he would not work on Sunday.
The owner's happy with, okay.
Yeah.
All right, just was curious.
Glad I got a chance to come up and speak.
Got anything else to say?
No. No.
I'm kidding.
All right,
We need a roll call.
please
We
call the
need
roll.
to add the, you said, should we amend the waivers to the motion you're saying, Mr.
I
Alpert?
think that was just,
I put the hours in.
Oh, you,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
thought you were saying something was missing.
I just wanted to have the clarification with no Sunday hours.
Okay. Sorry.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens.
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes. Our next item is discussion of the Articles of Incorporation of the Eastpointe Foundation for Community Growth and Excellence.
I did speak to Rich a little bit before the meeting about some changes that I think need to be made in terms of what the funding could be for. There's some provisions that say like funding can be used to supply core, services of the city, and it's really meant for commission activity. So I would be happy to table this until next meeting if
Do you want to make the motion, please?
Yep, I will make a motion to table the discussion on the Articles of Incorporation for the Eastpointe Foundation for Community Growth until our next regular meeting.
Support.
Move with support, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.
Councilmember Owens.
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
The appointment to the Assessment Board of Review, I think this was to the building. To the zoning board of,
Okay, I'm sorry, I think we had the wrong board identified. So I believe you're probably right.
yeah, so Michael Lamo, you did get his application here. He did it back in December, and he had applied to be on the zoning board of review. He's previously been a chairman of that group, so he's pretty knowledgeable about what the group is. So this is,
Zoning Board of Appeals.
right, the ZBA.
Is the term different then?
So this is an appointment by the city council.
I'm concerned about the term. I would recommend we postpone till the next meeting since this month's ZBA has been canceled, so we don't have any concerns.
Okay.
The
so
date of the term just,
I would
I don't like
entertain
it.
a motion to table that, please.
So moved.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico,
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld.
Yes.
Councilmember Owens.
Yes.
Mayor Pixley.
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido.
Yes.
So usually in January, we adjust the liaisons to the various commissions that we have, and these are all council people. So the Arts and Cultural Diversity Commission, we recently appointed Mike Kleinfeld to that. That meets on the third Monday at 7. Beautification, Cardi, I didn't know whether you still wanted to stay on that. I thought you were. So that's the fourth Thursday at 7 p.m., except you met last week.
Yeah, we added one. We usually add one extra in for the landscape awards.
Okay.
And is Mr. Marucci, I think I was told at our last meeting, is now the
Not for-
liaison? That's at least what is Mary.
Where's
So Mary
Mary?
Demsich said.
Not for beautification, for Parks and Rec.
He is.
For Parks.
For Parks he is.
That's what I thought, but I don't know why Mary would have said. I don't know.
Maybe
Okay.
she was confused.
Okay, well, you can adjust that.
Or it's correct.
The
on here.
DDA, currently Cardi is the liaison for that, and there's been some new changes on that as of January 1. So the mayor has to be on that committee.
Oh, okay.
So, but you can still stay on as liaison.
Okay.
Right?
He's a non-voting member, but
Oh.
anyone can come to a meeting.
Sarah and Mike, you probably don't know, at the DDA meeting today, it was brought forward some of the new changes that were put into effect through legislation that went into effect on January 1. And so that puts the mayor as on it, but believe me, Mr. Sabota is not going to get out of going to those meetings. He's going to be there and do his administrative report, and so is Mr. Blum. So, Cardi, you're the liaison, and I have to be on it, so whatever. The Eastpointe Housing Authority is a little bit of a problem right now because Mike works full-time. And so the third Wednesday at 10 a.m. is a little bit of a problem, and Sarah said that she
I would like to take it.
would be willing to do that. And Michael doesn't want to give it up, but, so maybe they might end up sharing it when Mr. Kleinfeld's available.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Reluctantly letting Sarah.
And Miss Monique is on Library Commission on the third Tuesday, and they like you, and you like it, and you are a voting member.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Okay, Madam Mayor, what has to be done under state law is an official motion would need to be made to appoint Councilmember Owens to a term that's specified, and I don't have the actual date on that, but her term of office is actually not set by her term on council, but by, was I think a 5 or a 4 year term of office.
So she was appointed 2 years ago.
It'll be almost 2 years, yeah.
So I believe her term of office then should be 4 years, but you might want to follow
I'll
up
have to
on
look in the rotation, so we'll have to put that on the agenda next meeting to make it official.
Okay.
That's to correct a little, I'll call it a clerical error.
Parks Commission, we put Sarah on this. It's meeting currently the second Wednesday of the month in the Patriot Building. Is that correct?
Yes,
At what time?
7 p.m.
We just want to make sure that the public is aware of all these meetings so they can attend whenever they want. Mr. Marucci is the administrator on that committee. And the Planning Commission, Sarah, you're also on that, which meets on the first Thursday at 7 p.m.
Yep.
And Mary is the administrator on that group.
Madam Mayor, if I may at least make note here, under the laws that govern planning commissions, I believe it is possible to actually have an elected official serve as a voting member of the planning commission. I don't know if council wants to consider that option at some point, but if you do, I can do a little bit of research and prepare the appropriate ordinance so when the next vacancy appears.
If you would do that research, that would be advisable.
Okay.
So the others, the Macomb Area Communities for Regional Opportunities, the macro meeting, I'm the voting member, and Mr. Sabota is the alternate, and we went this last week. That meets on the second Thursday of every month, it's 2 p.m. MML, the voting member on this is determined by the city council just before the convention in September. I just put these dates on because both Mike and I were the voting member and the alternate at the last convention.
Do we need to do that for the Capitol Conference?
And we don't do that at the Capitol Conference because there's no voting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The MML Legislative Coordinator, Mr. Kleinfeld, is the person that we have in that group that reports back to us the updates with the legislation that's being passed. So I've reminded him that he has to update us on all 400 pieces of legislation that were passed in December during the lame duck.
We got 3 more hours.
SEMCOG, this is for the General Assembly, the quarterly meeting that goes on where there is voting. And I'm the representative as mayor, and Mr. Kleinfeld is the alternate as the mayor pro tem. This does not include the executive council meetings. Those are, you are voted into those positions by other mayors and council people at during the General Assembly meeting. And then the sanitary district and the disposal authority, I'm the representative on that, and Mr. Kleinfeld's been attending as the alternate. And those are on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. So, if that's all right, we'd like to remain the same.
Well, it hasn't been changed since I got elected. I was supposed to be on SEMCOG with you. That was almost 2 years I haven't been added to that.
I have told you about the General Assembly meetings.
No, you have
When
not.
when the General Assembly meets just on a quarterly basis, and I told you about the last one, anybody on council can go to it.
You have not.
I have.
Not. But if you say you have not.
I announced it at the meeting here. So they're only held on a quarterly basis, once every 3 months.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna do names on here, it should have my name on here. It should have had my name on here 2 years ago. So that's what I'm saying. So if you said something to me, maybe didn't hear you.
Well, John Marion was the alternate before. So that's fine, you can go.
I've been going, and what I'm saying though.
You have not been to the General Assembly, you went to the Executive Council meeting.
I go to some of their classes. I went to their grant writing class, and I also go to their free classes that teaches you different things in the city, in the different cities.
Oh, the
so I might not
university?
have the universities. Yes, I have. So I might not have went to the General Assembly, but all the classes that SEMCOG give, predominantly I have been, and most of those people know me by name.
That's fine. The General Assembly meets on a quarterly basis, and that one has the voting privilege. And if you'd like to go to that, I can't remember where the next one is.
I'll find out.
Madam Mayor, if we want to change the alternate, I don't think you've ever had to have me fill in for that. So it doesn't matter to me if we want to look at
Well,
this
I'm
next
always
meeting.
concerned because those meetings are, they start like at 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes they start at 4 o'clock. It depends on where the facility is, how far out of town they are. So I'm not quite sure where the next one is going to be. But the Executive Council, to go to the meetings at SEMCOG downtown, which I know Ms. Owens has been, you have to be appointed by your other council and mayors at the General Assembly meeting, which happens on a quarterly basis. And that meeting is in March. In the last meeting, I remember asking you because you had told me that you wanted to do it, and I asked you, and it was up at the MISD on that day.
If you remember it, then you said it.
All right, and so that's all I have for now. And if you attend the next one that determines the executive office meeting is usually in March.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's all I have for that, unless you have some changes that you want. Let's move on to the next item, which is the marijuana legislation, the timeline and referral to the Planning Commission for review. Mr. Kleinfeld?
Yes, I realized that we had, after our joint meeting, we did not formally refer the matter over to the Planning Commission, so I thought that would be a good idea. So there are two things. first I'd like to do a motion to refer, and then I think just independent of that, we should discuss when we would like to put this next on our agenda to follow up. I would suggest maybe 3 months out or something like that.
Well, it is going to Planning Commission in February, correct?
Yeah.
Right,
That
so-
February, March, and April would be 3 meetings,
So
so
I
that would be
think
the
our first meeting in May would be, or the second meeting in April.
second meeting in April, first meeting in May. Actually, first meeting in May would be better, because that way it may give them, I don't know what the time is between their meeting and council agenda deadline to turn over a report.
Our meeting's at the 1st of April, so you'd have 2 weeks. We did the second week
Okay.
meeting in April. So-
All right, I'll just make it one motion then. I move to refer this matter to the Planning Commission for consideration and to plan for discussion at our second regular meeting in April to follow up on.
Just to clarify, you want them just to discuss it, or do you want them to actually come up with some sort of?
You're correct, refer to the Planning Commission for
Report and recommendation.
report and recommendation in a drafted ordinance.
Support.
All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
So our next item is the adoption of resolution number blank for MERS resolution establishing authorized signatories for contracts.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution as presented, which adopts the Municipal Employees Retirement System resolution establishing authorized signatories for contracts and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to the MERS authorized signatories for contracts.
Support?
Move and support. Is this just an update of a form, or is this?
No, this is actually a new requirement from MERS for this year. It's so, I'm not signing papers and I'm not authorized to. They don't know who's authorized and who's not. So they've requested each community to have this passed by council. And it's not naming names, it's naming positions. So that's why it has city manager, city clerk, and deputy city clerk as the authorized positions that can sign any agreements with MERS.
Why would you not put the finance director in?
I have no authority to sign anything other than checks.
That's for the city.
Okay, all right. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. The next item is the adoption of resolution number blank for MERS retiree health funding vehicle uniform resolution.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, I believe we're all aware that we have some assets set aside for OPEB, and those are identified in notes 12 and 13 in the audit. That totals just over $8 million. Those funds are presently being invested by Morgan Stanley and Raymond James. If you are also aware, in our audit, we were written up for failing to have a properly adopted investment policy for those assets. This is a plan that MERS offers in terms of serving as an investment vehicle for that particular purpose. I can tell you that I did use this particular plan in a previous community and was quite satisfied with it. What it will do is it will relieve the city of the responsibility of, number one, making investment decisions, number two, having an investment policy, and number three, I believe we will no longer be responsible for contracting separately for a actuarial evaluation, correct?
No, we still have to do the actuary. That's still on us.
But can't we have MERS do it?
Yes.
Okay. So, separate contract for an actuary we don't have to worry about obtaining. So this would be invested in a plan that would have a mix of 80% stocks and 20% bonds.
But we have no control over how it's invested.
Yes, we do. And right now, the decision is to place this in the capital appreciation portfolio, which is, that's page 3, which is 80% bonds and 80% stocks and 20% bonds. Mr. Blum and I reviewed the other particular options, and we found several of those being too conservative. And the total market portfolio and global stock portfolio, we felt that we would be exposed to too much foreign risk on those particular ones. Personally, actually, I have my personal funds invested in the capital appreciation portfolio, and I've done fairly well. And based on the MERS historical, granted past performance is not indicative of future results, that is usually the third or fourth best long-term return on investment. The top two are the large cap growth and the mid-cap growth. Those are not options available for this particular program.
So what kind of interest is it providing over the last year, 2 years?
My understanding is it's beating what we're doing, correct?
Yes. I mean, we have a fairly, I wouldn't call it conservative, but it certainly isn't invested in stocks. It's a lot of unique investment platforms right now. The Morgan Stanley stuff is just tied to exchange-traded funds, so it's tied to a S&P or a NASDAQ. It just, whatever the market does, we're getting return on. We do have some control over it because we would have the ability to move from one category to another if we wanted to get more aggressive or more conservative, but we're not out there picking, General Electric or Pan Am or making bad decisions.
I'm just interested, on average, what is the rate of interest on this one particular fund?
I'm trying to remember what my return was.
15%, 10%?
No, it depends on the year, obviously.
Gonna change
I cannot recall what my 5-year return was. But like I said, it was out of all of MERS's investments, this was the third best over the long term, 5-year.
All right, please call the roll.
We don't have a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong, yeah. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I'll move to adopt the resolution as presented, which adopts the Municipal Employees Retirement System Retiree Health Funding Vehicle Uniform Resolution and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents related to the MERS Retiree Health Funding Vehicle Uniform Resolution.
Is that the right one? Support.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
I'm not doing it again.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld,
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido,
Yes.
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Mayor Pixley,
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico.
Yes.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, when we had our meeting with MERS, the first question I asked them was, could you tell us about this particular plan? Because we have $8 million that we would like to invest. Needless to say, that set the tone for the meeting when we asked our other questions for MERS. So I think they're very happy to see that we are investing more money with the organization.
They're always really happy, but we never get a report about how much money we're actually making in our MERS accounts.
Yeah, we actually get a quarterly statement that shows the assets and the returns.
Can you share that with us sometime?
Sure.
I just want to see, I want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right, our next item and the last item is the adoption of resolution number blah, 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 pension underfunding corrective action plan.
And Madam Mayor, this will have to be amended for page
Four
four.
other considerations.
Yes, we're,
The last item.
there it is.
Page four.
The city is considering establishing a legacy commission, I think would be what you would want to,
Okay.
right?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution regarding pension underfunding corrective action plan and authorize the finance director to execute all necessary documents related to this pension underfunding corrective action plan application, with the one change on page 4 to indicate that the council is considering the creation of rather than has created.
Support.
Any further discussion on that? All right, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Payroll and bills.
Madam Mayor, I will make a motion to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $850,048.10.
Support.
Moved and supported. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Let's move on to the second hearing of the public. Anyone wish to be heard? Please, in the back.
Gary Myron, Eastpointe resident. I want to thank the city for taking care of a few vehicles that were in people's driveways with flat tires, not registered. And next door to me, there was DPW. I think they took care of the rubbish that was put out from moving the day after trash day. 30 feet long, so high. It was all gone the following day. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Creech?
Harvey Creech, resident of Eastpointe. Well, you put the elephant out there tonight. As I said, there is so much to chew on, I don't even know where to start. But I tell you, the first one, the goal setting, you know, you're talking about the public safety complex again, too, of the building. You know, just before Mr. Sabota come here, we were talking about, we had quite that plan before. We're already talking about $14 million plus. So, I mean, that, please, relatively, like the mayor said, the funds in this city for the infrastructure we need, for everything else this city needs and the rest of this stuff, I sure think, I'd like to put that, the public safety complex really on a back burner in comparison to what anything's even thinking about. And as I said before too, here the Legacy Commission, I don't really know exactly what that number was. Mr. Sabota, could you, the number?
Which number?
The Legacy Commission, how many people you were?
12, I believe.
12? Well, the mayor said that too, good luck. Especially voluntary and the rest of the stuff, between all the people you have to work in there. I don't know exactly how this is gonna work, but I mean, as there again too, as I said, I don't know exactly how many residents you're looking for, because all these other commissions, if you come out there in the hallway, when you walk into the door, every commission there, I think, needs members. And the Recreation Master Plan, I know you touched on that again tonight too. Is that going to start brand new to be a 5-year plan? Is I'm going to say that's another thing to really look at, because between the Planning Commission, you've started, I can't say you're opening a whole new ball of worms, but you've got a brand new master plan going all together. I don't know if you can find the old one. But, and then, as I said, in the line items that you talked about tonight, I brought that up, I mean, at one of the last meetings. I like the idea, but then again, too, Mayor, you brought up a lot of good things there. But until the residents or the council or anybody can actually understand in this city what's going on without the line items, you know, you can put anything down there. When you get to the general fund, or the, you know, to break it down, I don't know where it's going. I mean, the council itself, I know you get that and they present it to you in the budget or whatever it is too. But if you can figure it out, I think you're doing a whole lot better than the residents, because I've discussed the matter with Mr. Sabota himself, and he does a beautiful job. You know, you're breaking it down, but you can only break it down to so many different things. And then when you get down to light items, and as I said, there's just, it's just, tonight it's just unbelievable what there really was. I mean, a good discussion on a lot of things. But if the residents took this all in tonight, they've done a heck of a lot better than me, because I'm up on a lot of this stuff, but I didn't really get lost. But
You
if
have
you,
30 seconds.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Says in the liaisons, good luck. I mean, every one of you, I'm saying, I looked at your schedules and the rest of the stuff coming down. I hope you can make these meetings and the rest of the stuff, because you're going to be busy 7 days a week instead of 5 days a week. And Monique, good luck with what you've got going, and say Cardi, and everybody.
Time is up.
You've done it. You're doing a heck of a job. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard? In the back?
My name's Gabriella Buford. I'm from Turning Point Agency. I have a feeling I'm at the wrong meeting. I'm not sure. But I was told to come here to talk about the Community Development Block Grant. If I should come back on another day, or if I
Public
can-
hearing.
It's next
So-
meeting, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
It's next meeting.
February 5th, public hearing.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you.
Do you have a
And I
card or
will see you
anything,
guys-
at least, so you made your time worth it?
Do you want me to say something? I don't know.
You got 3 minutes.
I'm gonna have to make this spiel next time, so I'll save you all the, so, all right, I will see you guys February 5th.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
Karen Morajan, East Point resident. I trust the petting zoo discussion is going to be on the very next agenda. At the end of last week's meeting, I specifically asked when it was going to be put back on the agenda. Councilwoman Owens, you stated you didn't think it was necessary due to other solutions discussed. Well, when were those other solutions discussed? Because last week was the first meeting since the very last meeting in December. When was it discussed? Where was it discussed? Who was it discussed with? Because the public has the right to know. I'm sure you don't want to run afoul of the Open Meetings Act. So I think it's really in your best interest to put this petting zoo discussion back on the agenda. Again, you all made that motion, you passed it to put it on tonight's agenda, and it's not on the agenda. You guys have been dragging your feet for far too long. Other municipalities are moving in the right direction. They are banning animal-related entertainment. And what is Eastpointe doing? Sitting here doing nothing. You're not taking the neglect seriously. You think you can regulate your way out of it. That does not work. Do you not care about the stress these animals go through? And stress can kill these animals. Are you that narrow-minded that all that matters is that the kids are entertained? What are you teaching the kids? That animals are just something you put on public display to entertain them? That's not compassion. That is neglect. Would you want to be put in a cage, sitting in the sweltering sun, in high temperatures, high humidity? Let's put you in all your winter gear and not give you any shade, and then we'll only give you a 2-ounce cup of water for a 5-hour event. And then we're going to give you food that's known to be toxic and cause diarrhea. Then come back and tell me how you think it's such a great idea to continue with these petting zoos. Do you want to be a city that is known to turn a blind eye and deaf ear to animal neglect? Let me remind you, and this is my closing comment, you deliberately went without animal control from June of 2018 to November of 2018 because you didn't want to come up with the money to pay Macomb County Animal Control. That is shameful.
Anyone else wish to be heard? Sir?
How you doing, y'all? My name is Langston Moore. I am a resident of Eastpointe. I just want to say, all you guys, I think, are doing a good job thus far, should I say. I guess just seeing some of the stuff that I've seen, communication is key. Mayor, you said you told her something, and she said you didn't tell her. You know, that's communication. You asked them to let us know what you're doing with the money on this per se thing. Well, we don't remember what the number was. So when I hear a lot of this, I hear that's communication problems amongst each other. And to this lady about animals, trust me, I love animals. I'm an animal lover. I'm pretty sure these people do not want animals mistreated. I'm pretty sure of that. But it's like when you have a lot of people who don't have jobs, who y'all want to give jobs to, who they have money to help people out. I think the vision for them is they trying to make sure the people are okay before animals. I've seen children, honestly, at this school mistreated by police officers, treated like animals. And I'm not gonna lie, some of these kids are a mess. Yes, they are. But I've seen kids mistreated at the high school that y'all speaking on up here. I have 4 children that go, 2 adopted and 2 of my own. But they all my own, but the whole point is we have to do a lot better when it comes to our community, to the children. I see it's a lot of money being passed around, but it's nothing changing. That has to change. That's all I want to really say. You know, it's a lot of money change. You know, I'm not the smartest kid in the class, but I'm a smart kid. You just have to do better, I think, with the finances. That's all. It's just really nothing too major. I'm not going to be up here all day. But we shouldn't be so harsh on them. You know, not so harsh, because these some good people up here. But at the end of the day, I guess you know, when it comes to the animal petting, I get it. You know what I mean? Because there's more things that we can make money off than, you know, abusing pets somehow, some way. You know what I mean? Y'all talked about the medical marijuana stuff. Let's just be honest. Ever since Reagan, our country has been tore up on drugs, okay? And it's really not the medical marijuana and all this stuff that's tearing our cities up. It's not. I think if you control it, we can make money. We can make a lot of money in this city if you did it the right way.
You have 30 seconds.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be out your way in 10. All I'm saying is if you control stuff like that, like the medical marijuana, stuff like that, and dispensaries here, that can make a lot of money for your city. I'm gonna tell you that now. Everybody knows that drug dealing is key. And I'm not a drug dealer, but I'll tell you that. I see the drug dealers live a lot. And I'm talking about pharmacists and all that. We're not talking about street guys. But that can make you a lot of money for your city. So whatever y'all doing for that part, try to bring it to your city and see what happens. You know
And
what
your
I mean?
time is up, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? When that second hearing of the public is closed, we'll start with mayor and council reports. Let's start with Mr. DeMonico.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm going to cut a few things out of it to shorten it up. Want to congratulate the school board members that were just sworn in. Robert Roscoe, Keith Ward, Julie DeVita, Shaniva Early, and Ed Williams. It was a wonderful meeting they just had yesterday. And had fun for a few minutes at the basketball game at the high school. Well, there were 3 of them, at least. I think I was trying to figure that out. But they were selling old East Detroit jerseys, so I looked like they'll have some left over. So if you're interested, I think I may have picked up my brother's old soccer uniform, so that was kind of cool. I think that was his number. And then try to attend an event on MLK Day on the 21st. It's not a day off, but a day on. Try to learn a little more about Martin Luther King and the nonviolent movement and other things. And the Landscape Awards for the Beautification Commission are on the 30th, Wednesday the 30th, 7 p.m. at City Hall. And I think I'm going to cut it off there. Be here for that. It's really nice. We'll be honoring 9 residents and 3 businesses in the city for their landscaping last year. Thank you.
Ms. Owens.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of reports. I'm gonna talk really fast. Hopefully you guys can catch up. If not, see me after the meeting. Well, we had a lot going on since the last meeting. For instance, I went to my first RARE meeting. I seen Mr. Creech there, and Ms. Karen was there as well. And I was just talking to him about trying to make it a little bit later on, because at 3:30, kids are getting out of school. Some of you guys are, just getting off work, and sometimes that's why we can't make it. So hopefully, sooner or later, they'll change the time so we can be more involved in that. So I was able to go to that, so that they're doing a good job in that. I was also able to make the Parks Commission that same night, which Ms. Lucido was over. They had a lot of good ideas. She's doing a really good job. I'm so glad we got it. I seen Mr. Creech again that day. So I think we spent a whole bunch of time this whole week together. So with that, also, Love Life had a game night that was at their church, and that was really fun. Council member DeMonica was there. Again, Mr. Creech was there. So I spent most of my week with you, Mr. Creech. So I think we're pretty much getting along now. So that was really fun that the church opened it up. Kara was there. It was a lot of mentorships and people with organizations that was there. The 4-H was there. We had a really good time signing people up with our traveling club. That's one part that we do with the traveling club. We meet at the Kelly Middle School. We talk about things, and then we go somewhere to open their minds up to what we learned. So that's some of the things that we did. Also, I seen Kari again. I spent some time with Kari DeMonica. We went to some things in the city as well. And also I went, you guys know I am part of the library commission, so I went there tonight. And we have a lot of good things going on with the library. I'm not gonna read it all, but I'm gonna start with something that may interest everybody, that a lady who has her own bakery, she will be coming out talking. It's called Terry's Cake Presents Let's Chat About Entrepreneurship. So if you've never had your own business, thought about it, had it, stopped it for whatever reason, because life happens, sometimes we have to stop our dreams to deal with reality, but don't do that. She will be talking about entrepreneurship Thursday, February the 7th at 6:30 at the library. They will have books, media sale in February. A lot of things are going on in February. Also in February, they got something new. They're gonna have a lady that will be doing poetry and reading. I believe that's for Black History Month. And also in February 28th, at the Detroit Institute of Arts, they will have something called In Our Own Voice, an African-American art show as well. And for upcoming events, more upcoming events, that was just at the library. I had to say that or they were gonna get me. Also, we all know that Black History Month is coming up, but before that, we have Martin Luther King Day that's coming up, and that is on the 21st, if some didn't know or forgot. It's a lot of events that will be held. The Macomb County Minister Alliance will be giving a breakfast that they do every year at the McRae Banquet Center in Harrison Township. All are welcome to come. The price is $30, which they give out. The breakfast is awesome. The speakers are awesome, and you get to meet a lot of people in your community that has to do with organization, your senators, and so on and so forth. And also later on that night at 5 p.m. at the Dakota High School, they will be doing an appreciation of Martin Luther King as well. So it's just a lot of things going on. And then the day after that, the PACE meeting will be at the old schoolhouse at 11. So they're asking everybody to bring a potluck. It's not mandatory, but for me, if you can't cook, please don't. But it'll be a nice event. So just come out, have a good time, see what's going on in the city, and and how you can help and volunteer and see what the PACE is doing. Invite someone. When you come to these events, invite a neighbor. Say, I'm going to the PACE meeting, I'm going to the library. Invite a neighbor so they can see what's going on. I know I love seeing you, Mr. Creech, but I want to see your wife sometimes too. She's cute. She's a little bit nicer than you at times. So also, last but not, and I want to congratulate the new school board members. They're awesome. I believe they're going to do a good job. I believe that the residents chose some awesome people. And I also want to let people know about the Macomb Community Action Council. I don't have the location right now, but it's the whole county of Macomb is coming together to bring a council together to let people know what's going on in the county and the issues. So if you want to know more about that, you have to go to macomb.org and see more about that. And they have a lot of resources on that. So I'm going to end it with the petting zoos. I don't agree with Ms. Karen, even though I love you very much, Ms. Karen. I love when you come. That is not true. We have opened it up about talking about the petting zoos. Dr. Rohi, me and him in the council, we talked about having animal control present at the petting zoos, at those events. We talked about that openly. So you might want to go back to YouTube and check that conversation out. Also, Mr. Rohib has did several amounts of research. Council has did several amount of research. We also looked into paying overtime to our animal control officer to do that excessive work for us. So to say that the council has not did anything and ignored you, I would disagree with that. I think we're doing a pretty good job going forward. We don't ignore things like that. And Mr. Langston, thank you for what you do. He's also a part of the 4-H. He not only is a resident, but he's also a mentor with the 4-H program, and we do more than just deal with pets. And hopefully the conversation that you said about the kids being treated like animals by the police do a good job, but if you feel like we need to do more work and be better, we have to work. We have lots of things to work on. And that guy right there, please talk to him after, because he's about fairness and bringing diversity into the city of Eastpointe, and so am I, and also the council. So thank you for coming. Thanks everybody for coming, and I'm done.
Mrs. Lucido?
First, I would like to take a moment to thank everyone that came out on Saturday, some of the Park Commission members and a lot of residents. Came out, we walked the parks, and we went through, we have a nice detailed list of what needs to be done and ideas for the future, and also took the time to actually point out some of the things that our parks have that some people didn't even know existed. So it was a really nice morning. We took about 3 hours, so we took our time. We looked through everything pretty thoroughly. The Parks Commission is meeting again to discuss the memorial building next week, and so I'm hoping that we can get moving on that because it's something that's been put off a little too long. The only other thing I have to say is thank you for everyone for coming tonight, and tomorrow is the 8K Homeowners Association meeting at 7 p.m. at Pleasant View High School. Mr. Sabota is going to be their guest speaker, and so hopefully everyone come out. It's open to all residents, so they would really love to see some new faces, and that's it for this evening.
Mr. Kleinfeld?
Thank you. I'll keep it very short. Keep an eye out for the Arts Commission Facebook page. I think they're going to be featuring different people in February for Black History Month. And happy birthday to my mother today. And that's all I have.
I just have a few things. There was a coalition that we've had in existence now in this city for I believe we started it maybe 7 or 8 years ago. We're working with CARE that planned the community event that was held over at Love Life. I couldn't go because I was working charity poker to raise money for some of our community events. But anyway, the coalition did have 150 people there, and they played multiple games and so forth. It was a great event. And we have to thank the Coast Guard because the Coast Guard provided pizza for 50 people, which obviously wasn't enough if you have 150 people. So Dan Hogan went out and bought additional pizzas, and a couple other people too. As more and more people came in and needed pizza, they went out and got more and more pizza. One of our dearest friends to this council is Mr. Dan Zander. Everybody knows Dan Zander. He's been at the school bus stop on Stevens and Grove forever. He's a cheerleader for anything that relates to the high school. He had a total knee done. It was announced last night at the school board meeting that he's staying with his mother temporarily. So it'd be really nice. Everybody loves Dan. If you would send him a card, send it over to the school district. It would be a great thing and make him feel so good. In the meantime, Pastor Lancaster is the one that's going to be saying the invocation for the school board meetings. At the library, they also have 2 book clubs, and I keep promoting this. This is one of the better things. The schedule of which book club is happening is in the little newsletter that's provided at the library desk. But the mystery book club is my favorite one, and that is a week from Monday. The Pace Luncheon is a potluck, because I am not buying all the food for everybody that comes. Mr. Sabota, you're still coming and talking just briefly, correct? at
Well, let's just say I may have,
Let's just say I may have prepared my remarks for more than one meeting
okay.
and address.
So we're going to shorten it, but you will be there at the pace. At this PACE particular meeting, PACE means Police and Community for Equality, and we're now in the 21st year of this organization that has been really beneficial to our community. And this is a time that we give awards. So we will be giving awards to a couple of the police officers as well as other people that have been active throughout the area. I would like to address, I think Mr. Curley has left, but we are not putting a new roof on the building. We have a cedar shake roof, which is has to be what was in existence when the building was built in 1872, but it needs a new coating on it. So we're looking for a roofer that has a special type of coating that can be put on that and with the scaffolds. And as long as we're getting scaffolds around the building to fix the roof, we really need to paint the upper portion of it. So we're looking for people that can help us with the painting once we set up all the scaffolds and all. It is a tremendous effort to keep that building in line. At the DDA meeting today, we have decided where the Shamrock is going to go. The Shamrock has been around for a while. Nobody could decide where to put it. We've decided, the DDA decided today, they're going to put it right outside in the fountain, because the fountain no longer works, and we think that's a symbol of the city, the history of the city. So they're going to put it there, and we told the Arts Council, Mary Van Haren was there, that they could paint it however they wanted it. But that's a very dangerous statement because the Irish were orange and green, so you may be looking at a shamrock that's part orange and part green. And that's all I have. So I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
Move and support, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilmember Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilmember Lucido?
Yes.
Councilmember Owens?
Yes.